what's out there. Like Sandman, you talked about, you've been burned. It's like you know what's out there. But for guys that don't, they can't even access that.
Yeah.
In the first place, it's a bit different type of mood. I agree with you. Yeah.
So I mean, the MRA community, for example, their whole thing was we need to change the laws so we can go back to the plantation, right? Because they were kind of happy in the plantation, and that's what they wanted. And then the MGTOW community, we realized, well, the plantation's not a good place to be. We dated, maybe have a relationship but not get married, or maybe find that unicorn. That was our hope. Our hope was a unicorn. The hope was change the laws, go back to the plantation. So what's the hope for the incels? Was it just to get a date, or is there something else there?
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, the name implies celibacy, so to escape being celibate, and you're a voluntary celibate. So it's not like an ideology, it's an objective term. You either think or not. It has fun of an ideology, and that ideology is black. So a lot of people in the mainstream, they say, oh, incel, but incel is like an objective term, and I think like the self-identifying incels are a minority of incels. But that's what it is. The way to escape, I mean, there's different spheres. There's a lookism sphere that says you can escape by getting plastic surgery, doing this. There's other spheres that like geomaxing, which is you go across the sea in a better dating market. There's like social circle maxing, which I'm kind of a proponent of, sorta. Which is social circle. Basically, it's kind of like a camp started more by Hell by Bashford Light and like Nanya Basness, these two guys that were kind of on the fringe of the black pill, and they kind of went against the whole lookism, because Face LMS basically became the largest channel.
Yeah.
He became Sandman is the biggest channel of MGTOW in the Manosphere. Face LMS became the largest channel of the black pill. So, but there was a counter to that narrative by Hell by Bashford Light, and they actually had a 4-hour debate. Which was pretty epic. And so there's ideologies, and there's like subgroups in that ideology. So we have the same type of like rift in the black pill, where there's some people that say, looks is going to be more important, or there's like your social circle, and then there's people that say, screw all that, you got to geomax, you got to just leave the West. And so there's different strategies to escape inceldom.
Okay. Right. Now the purpose of escaping inceldom is what?
Well, for many guys, like I think it's like a misnomer. It's like a misjudgment that people think that incels just want sex, but that's actually I wouldn't say that's actually pretty incorrect, because we have guys all over because here, at least here in the United States, prostitution is illegal, and they shut down like all avenues of it, like Backpage got removed. So here, but we have guys in Europe that call in, that participate in the community, that they have access to prostitution, and they say that it's really not about that. It's about getting that female validation in a relationship. They want to feel that. Maybe some of them felt that before, and they want it again, or they've never felt it, and they just want to experience it once.
So calling it involuntary celibate is kind of a misnomer almost, because it's not. Celibacy, as far as I understand the definition, means not having sex by choice.
I mean, we just used because there's like a recent article that came out just a couple weeks ago that's an objective study of a lot of college students. That's 33% of men are now incels. It's on Reuters, it's on everywhere, and it's just it's an objective measure. It's a binary term. Are you incel or you're not incel? And it's a good measure. It's a measure. It's like, because if you're in a relationship, you're most likely having regular sex. Yes, there's some dead bedroom messages, but there's dead bedroom, that type of stuff. Sure, but that's the thing. I mean, it's not so much about sex. It's about just getting into a stable relationship, or getting, a girlfriend. That's what every guy is kind of taught, is that at 18 you're supposed to kind of get your first girlfriend. Yeah, you're supposed to, and that's just not happening. And so we have a lot of men coming out, a lot of young men coming out and saying, what's going on? What is driving this?
Well, that's true, because celibacy, obviously, celibacy means not having sex, and if you're not having sex, you're obviously not in a relationship also. So yeah, exactly. I agree. It all ties in. However, look, maybe the whole system is fucking turned upside down, and something really drastic needs to change. Is that kind of where the black pill idea is going?
Yeah, that's. I mean, we've been kind of kicking the can down the road in this sphere. It was like what's going to be our cope? Is it going to be prostitution? Is it going to be face surgery to get ourselves a higher SMV? Is it going to be this? And I think a lot of our ideology is reaching the end of the road, where we say, the market just getting so crazy now, especially during COVID. I mean, that's what we're doing with Face on Us. We're discussing the current dating market during COVID, and that's what I've been researching recently. I've been taking a hiatus from my channel, our channel, and researching that. And the dating market for men is just progressively getting worse. It's getting exponentially worse, honestly, with what's going on recently. So it's like Sandman said, then he stopped dating 2015. It was bad then, and I can tell you that it's just been ever since like 2015, 2016. It's just been exponentially worse. More and more guys are getting priced out of this market. It's like a runaway. It's kind of like runaway inflation at this point of female SMB on online dating, social media, all that. You see the acceleration. You can objectively measure it because last year we didn't have this rise in OnlyFans. All of a sudden COVID hit and we had a 75% increase in OnlyFans accounts. So there's objective measures where we can track this. We can say, hey, it is getting worse. Look at OnlyFans. Look at a woman pretending to be a dog is making 6 figures a month, on OnlyFans. So, there's metrics and there's checkpoints to this stuff. We talk about the Overton window always shifting, because the dating market, like some guys, like in the older guys in the manosphere, they're talking about a dating market that was in the 80s or 70s or 90s, whenever they were active in it. And the thing is it's not a static market. It's a dynamic, fluid market. It moves like the stock market, up and down. And I mean, it's on a crazy for female SMB. It's just gone through the roof. I mean, it's a runaway inflation situation.
It's moved to the image. It's moved to the avatar. It's no longer about communication, linguistics. It's all about the picture, the image. It's the Santorini, pictures of Dubai, pictures on a yacht. This is what it's turned into. And 95% of men cannot provide infinite Disney.
Exactly. Oh, that's wow. That's a really good infinite Disney. I like that. That's
really because I call it perpetual Disney dreams.
Because how are these girls raised from the womb? It's like you're gonna watch these Disney princess movie and you're a princess. You're a prince. That's how, at least in America, it is, and that's so true. I mean, that's what you see with these dating profiles nowadays. Is women are living in a different reality almost. Like there was a good news article that says there was COVID in the UK, and one woman said, "No, I'm going to Botswana and doing this and doing parachuting." It's like women just have this infinite escape. They can go anywhere. That's what a lot of women do. They travel now. They take these. The men. That's the problem now. Is that even if you were to go sit down, you're so lucky you get a chance with a woman to go on a date. The thing is before social media, at least you guys kind of had the similar experience. Your perception of the world was pretty similar. But now with social media and online dating, a female perspective is way different than the male, because females are getting bombarded by males. As a male, you're kind of lonely. You're kind of not getting bombarded by anybody. So when you go to sit down with a woman, your two experiences just don't match. So there's already friction from the beginning. That's why relationships aren't even starting. Like, people aren't moving past the first date even. Like, it's over. It's like over at the beginning now, because the two lives are so different. The male and female life are just they don't match anymore.
They live in a different world. They don't share the same community. They don't enjoy the same movies. They don't enjoy the same music. They don't pursue.
They don't work.
Peterson to this. They don't work. They're on OnlyFans and stuff. And women just are overstimulated with so many options that they just shut down, and they just check out and kind of form their own little incel community, which I've actually come to learn is that one of my girlfriends, just a friend, she actually asked me for a picture of my stuff. She goes, "Send me a picture." I'm like, "What for?" She goes, "It doesn't matter, just send me a picture." She messages me a few days later, and she sent me like 5 or 6 different pictures of all these really attractive girls. She goes, "What do you think of all these?" I'm like, "Oh, they're all pretty hot." I'm like, "What do they want? What's going on?" They actually have their own Facebook group where they talk about all these hot single guys that don't get laid. This just came to my knowledge recently. So women have their own form of communication, similar to Incel and MGTOW, where all they do is talk about how they can't get guys, or they don't understand why these good-looking guys are single, so on and so forth.
I've noticed
that's interesting.
I've noticed something really weird too. I was talking to a woman who's in her mid-40s the other day, and from a looks perspective, she's maybe a 3 or a 4, and she's getting all sorts of guys her age, slightly older, and they're not even looking for sex. They're just buying her things, taking her to the theater. They're not even like asking for anything in return. So that's just destroying the dating market entirely because, you know, the expectation of sex isn't even there anymore. It's just like men are just looking for companionship and they're willing to accept that over nothing. And men are just getting so thirsty. And then she complains to me about how guys, like, that she actually wants, they don't want to spend any money on her. You know, the guys she doesn't want, the beta simps, are paying for, like, to take her out to the theater. They're paying for movie tickets. They're taking her out of town for the day. Yet she's not sleeping with them. The guys she wants to sleep with, that she wants a relationship with, don't want to pay anything. So those are the two choices that she has. So she's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, take the guy who is obviously not going to pay for you because he has higher sexual marketplace value. And then she kind of just like giggled to herself like she knew exactly what I was talking about. So, you know,
So
anyway.
she wanted the guy that just wanted to fuck her?
That's the guy she wanted, but he wasn't paying for anything. So she was complaining to me about it, right? And so she was basically...
Right, this is the 80-20 rule.
Well, but it was weird. It was like she was gonna shit test him and like tell him to pay for her, but she was like testing me to see what I think about the shit testing that she was gonna probably test him with. And I was like, well, if he can still get with you and he doesn't have to pay, then, you know, I wouldn't pay either. And she kind of got like, she like scoffed for a minute. I'm like, well, it's true. Right. And then she started giggling and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow. I don't even know, man.
But this is like 45-year-old women who are now in the same dating market as the younger women, and they're the same type of behavior that Incel Maddox was describing is now hitting older women. So these older women don't know what to do. So it's corrupting them too. So it's corrupting the whole gamut from beginning to end.
Well, there's a term for this in the incel community in the black sphere. It's called juggernaut law. So what happens is, as men are constantly priced out, and this is a basic economic model. It's called alternative goods. As they're being priced out of their looks match, which means a looks match is like you're a 5 out of 10 guy, you see for a 5 out of 10 girl. You know. So once you're priced out, you keep getting priced out of the dating market. You start going for lower and lower tiers of women. That's juggernaut law. Is the more flaws a woman have, the more men perceive that to be as she has less options and he has a more chance with her. So what happens is it's kind of inverse, that all the men start going for like fat women, or they start going for
old women,
different types of women. Yeah, and that's what's happening is the dating. That's how you can tell the dating market is getting so much worse when you're seeing this anecdotal evidence of older women receiving this type of attention. So yeah, that's a good barometer. It's called juggernaut law. That's kind of the law that's been put in place and kind of studied in the incel sphere, and I plan to do a whole episode on that too.
Successful 35-year-old guys marrying 40-something single mothers.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Good looking, tall, 6 feet and above. Like, what the fuck is going on? And I would do wedding photos, and I'd be like, what is going on? Like, you're 50 years old and he's 32. What the hell is going on? You're the same.
A lot of it has to do with divorce. Is because now that 45-year-old guy is divorced now, so he can go and chase younger women, pushing young men who would, you know, cohabitate or get together or have sex with an attractive 24, 25-year-old. You're now competing against a single dad who's 45, who's got, you know, who's got a nice war chest saved up and can provide, you know, vacations and stuff.
How many guys are out there like that, though? I don't think the numbers are quite that, like, rosy as you paint.
Well, you know, since I've been back in Canada, which is now 4 years, just about 4 years, I've noticed the exact thing you are describing. I've seen, and especially now that I'm running a shop, obviously, I'm in one place, and customers come in and they leave, right? Mm-hmm. So I get a nice little sample of people from the outside world just coming in to buy the product and leave, right? And I've seen it a lot of times, man. I've seen exactly how you described. I look at a guy and I go, you're a pretty good-looking guy. You know, you're tall, good-looking. Why are you with that thing? I've seen it a lot. And that's the juggernaut. It's bizarre.
So it's called the juggernaut law.
Yeah, because women are kind of like a juggernaut. The more flaws it has, it's an unkillable hydra. A woman just can't lose, and that's why you see on OnlyFans. This is what Thinking Ape talked about Stardust. He talked that if you look at OnlyFans, the women that are 16, they're not supermodels. They're not even models. They're just
They're
average.
hideous.
Yeah.
They're frumpy.
And why does this happen? Why?
Mango shaped.
The male sexuality of how you look at it. It's like when a woman grows up, it's like the posters on her wall. She's like going for the top guy. You know, they're Justin Bieber, whatever it was in their era. But men, they kind of situate themselves on what they can attain, what they realistically can attain. That's who they're attracted to. Men are attracted to who they can perceive to be on their level because that's more realistic for them.
Quoi?
Ah, attends, t'as le Chamber of Sin.
Yeah! Mais je peux te faire un TP à une place pertinente. Où il faut qu'on aille faire le trial anyway.
C'est le boss?
Yeah!
Ah, fuck, man. Faut que je revienne pour le buter, moi.
Yeah!
J'ai pas looté le Baleful Gem.
Yep, de l'autre place, il va falloir que je te fasse un waypoint. Ah, j'ai même pas pris le waypoint dans le Chamber of Sin, tu me niaises. Ah, ben faut qu'on tourne dans le Chamber of Sin.
Ok, mais laisse-moi. Ah, Roll of Thunder, c'est bon, ça. Mais Frenzy, éventuellement, ça va être pratique, mais pour l'instant, juste me prendre un Roll of Thunder. En fait, je pense que j'ai eu la quest. La quest te donnait-tu Herald of Thunder, justement?
Celle que je viens de faire?
Ouais.
Non, c'est l'autre d'avant. Celle qu'on avait fini ensemble.
Ah, ok. Regardez-moi 2 secondes.
Pas de stress.
So the male ideal, it has to do with accessibility, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that makes sense because generally, in most societies, men are considered providers. So for them, their focus is generally on their ability to provide. Men aren't looking to try and I think in general, most men aren't looking to try and attract a woman by how buff he is. They're trying to attract a woman based on how well he can provide for her.
Ah, fais-moi donc un TP.
I think it's biological.
T'es sûr? Fais juste rentrer dans la pièce où je suis.
Ah, ok. Ah, attends. Fuck.
Hmm?
God, which
Bah,
one?
le prochain waypoint, faut que je retourne. Je pense que j'ai pas pris la quest.
Most attractive women at the top, just reverse it, and that's what women want. So, for what a woman
J'ai
wants,
pas ouvert les
best
smugglers
is
cash
you
sans
want
toi
a
non plus.
good-looking guy. And what you, as a guy, what you want is a woman with a lot of money. The last thing you want is a woman with a lot of money. You'd rather date the waitress.
T'as rendu niveau quoi, là?
You know, with feminism,
20?
a woman
J'ai vraiment pas joué beaucoup.
Yeah, if a woman has a PhD, she's not gonna want a truck driver because in the past, a truck driver or a mechanic or a plumber, he can at least provide.
T'avais-tu déjà eu l'option pour Ball Lightning?
His labor with his hands,
Non.
he can fix things around the house.
Ball Lightning, c'est prochain acte, je me souviens.
He can unclog a toilet. Now you have service industries that can provide all that for her.
Moi, j'ai tellement jamais joué genre des casters, là.
She can call someone to fix it versus having a husband around who can unclog it for her.
Yeah. But that's getting into SMB stuff. That's old school MGTOW.
So
stuff.
first, so we were talking about before.
Ah, j'ai même pas activé Herald of Thunder.
We were talking about where this is all heading. So I pointed out that it was MRA went to.
Ah, puis en plus je peux mettre un. Attends.
Incel. So where do you see? What do you see after Incel? Where do you see this going?
Herald of Thunder, hell yeah.
That's a good point, Sandman. But before
J'ai un skin de skill.
Tiens, je t'ai envoyé le lien pour le stream.
Le stream?
Yeah.
All right. Because you mentioned it quickly before we went live. It started out as MRA.
Which
Ah,
is, buy, don't lease, right? And then
Trial?
MGTOW.
Non, pas le trial. Ah, fuck, t'as fait le trial?
Non, je l'ai pas fait, j'attendais ça.
Ah, ok.
J'ai juste fait la quest, je voulais juste tuer des gens finalement.
You want to date, but at the same time, even the option to rent because of all the shutting down of things like what's it called? That website that the government shut down. Backpage. So even that option, right. It's making it more difficult even to rent. So at this point, it's eliminating options for men. The only thing men really have left is pornography at this point. And if the government tried to take that away, it would be like chaos in the streets. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so that's.
Ok, ça c'était le. Il est où le trial?
J'ai pas encore trouvé.
Ok, là, faut moi je retourne en ville pour prendre quoi?
Vas-y.
You're absolutely right. You know, I never thought about it until we had that short conversation before we went live. is, and again, this is the first time we've had
Ok,
any
non, c'est
serious
le soir, c'est
incel
pas ça.
people
L'autre.
on the show. And you mentioned how MRA, it started MRA,
Mhm.
and I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, actually, in a timeline, that's exactly how it happened. It started with the MRAs. You had the Paul Elams,
Yep.
who are in their 60s now.
Yep. And
Right?
then I went to the men's rights conference, and that's when MGTOW became bigger. And Paul Elam looked at me with like the look of death, and I kind of like freaked out.
Yes.
I was like, "Fuck, what's going on?" And I didn't realize that that was kind of the transition point. It was like late June of 2014. The flag had been passed, and I didn't know what the fuck had happened. And he probably did, but he was pissed. I didn't know what was going
Alright,
on. And so now I'm starting to
Je
see.
suis dans le
I
Chamber
think
of Sin
once
niveau 2.
that van attack happened in Toronto a couple of years ago, I think that's when Incel just shot up through the roof. The searches for it, at least, and then once I saw Face LMS, I was like, oh my god.
es-tu dans le niveau
this guy's
2, le
taking
trial?
things to another level in terms of like adding
nice.
chin
Tu as dit dans tes
implants
quests?
and, sculpting the
Ah bah oui, t'as
nose
raison.
and all this kind of stuff. So I could see that it was heading in that direction. So where does it go after this, though? That's really. Go ahead.
On that note, before
Je m'en vais-tu vraiment énormément dans la mauvaise direction?
Non, non, tu vas dans la bonne direction pour faire la quest. Moi, je cherche dans pas cette
ok.
direction-là, dans le but de trouver le trial. Je pense que j'allais trouver d'ailleurs.
Ok, je m'en viens. Tu veux-tu me faire un TP au pire? Ou...
Yeah. Là, on va finir. Continue, t'es dans la bonne direction. On va faire ça, je vais te mettre le TP.
Ok, c'est bon. C'est parce que moi je fais pas d'XP, c'est ça l'affaire, mais c'est pas grave.
Oh yo, j'ai tué
pas que c'est un
une
gros
pièce
problème.
de monstre. That's it.
Ah, mais t'as un niveau complet d'avance, c'est pour ça que je disais ça. Là, je comprends bien, mon Herald of Thunder, il sert à rien.
Non, il
Parce que
augmente
je-
ton lightning damage.
Ouais, mais il fait pas de.
Blablabla.
Non, il explose pas.
Well,
Genre,
les lightning qui tombent partout, là?
Non, c'est parce que j'ai un skin pour le skill, puis on dirait qu'il marche pas.
Ah bon.
C'est pas grave.
So what I have up now first is a screenshot you sent to Lamprey.
Who sent that screenshot?
First.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Ben, je m'en vais dans la bonne
So, yeah, just
direction.
email me that
J'ai
to me
déjà
so I
un.
can
Ok,
put
j'avais
it in the
déjà un
video when I
fucking
put it together.
TP, man.
Oh, we will.
Lol.
Thank you.
Alright, fait que fais-moi un TP.
So,
J'ai pas fait,
are
tiens.
you looking at the live stream right now?
Quand on va avoir le Chamber of Sins Level 2 déjà sorti, mais il va falloir que je ressorte par exemple. Qu'on fasse une nouvelle instance.
The one that I have up right now.
Ah, bah oui.
In the search, it's Incel versus MGTOW search comparisons, and it's the number one is Turkey because you sent a few, and it goes all the way back to January 2004.
Yeah, I made it the maximum. That's the maximum it goes to.
And so what you see is that
What the hell?
it's Incel MGTOW's nothing until 2014-ish. MGTOW takes off, and then coming in at what is that? Let me put on the other one there. 2000.
Ah, il nous en manque combien là?
16, 17.
6? 4?
4.
All of a sudden, Incel
Ben, moi, je retourne au
shoots over
first
the top.
encampment. Toi, sors, puis
So,
fais CTRL-click pour partir d'une nouvelle
basically, what you
instance.
guys have been talking about for the last 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
This is a visual verification.
Ça a pas marché. Fuck,
on
j'ai
social
juste
media
téléporté. Ok, c'est sur
incidents to,
le
search
waypoint, right?
results. So, I don't know, explain a little bit about
Contrôle
that.
sur Chamber of Sins.
Yeah, so you
New
can see the
instance.
trajectory of MGTOW started way earlier, and it started going up and up.
Okay,
and
le
up,
viens-t'en.
and then I think right around one of the.
Fais-moi téléporte-toi sur moi.
Yeah.
Elliot Roger was back in 2014, I believe.
Is what I did.
Or earlier than that, and it
Il
didn't
était déjà
even
dead,
start
ça peut
to
plus
win
remplir
until
ta
Alec
quest.
Manassian attack, where you see that
Increase
spike
duration,
that
il est-tu
gold
déjà.
line. Yeah, and ever
Non.
since, if you
Pas
look
avant
at
la
the
niveau
trend,
3,
is that
milieu
Incel
ou
has
fin.
completely kind of
Like-
taken over MGTOW, and
Okay.
MGTOW's kind of on a slow, kind of.
Ah, fuck, man, ça a pas reset. Faut que je reset encore, attends, laisse faire. J'ai oublié de cliquer sur New Instance avant de rentrer dedans.
That's what we're going to now, as especially with the generation of Zoomers or Gen Z coming to age.
No.
That's what we're experiencing. So it makes sense why these trends.
Now, part of that trend with MGTOW going down has to do with the demonetization of MGTOW. When YouTube, like, if you see that peak that happened at the end of 2018, that was basically right when MGTOW was demonetized. So a lot of the channels have faded off since then. And if that hadn't been there, it would have continued to grow, probably continued to grow for the future periods. But then eventually would have probably declined as Incel continued to rise.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I
yeah,
find
if
it
you don't have
funny
an
that-
incentive, yeah.
Oh shit,
Incel gets
okay.
violent.
But I've heard that a
So-
lot of the Incel channels get demonetized as well.
Yeah, we don't
then
make
that
any
would
money.
be-
L'autre
that
bord,
would
par rapport à
be
l'entrée.
the, well, MGTOW never made any money. Except
Oh, it
Sandman.
made money. No,
Non, y a
no,
pas de,
look,
y a pas
people,
de place.
everybody made money. Look, Howard
Ah,
I
ben,
c'est un
never
dead
made
end.
any money.
Well, Howard Dare was making a few $1,000s a month, and TFM and myself and Raging Golden Eagle, like everybody was doing great up until there was the Adpocalypse and then the MGTOW Adpocalypse, and there were bumps up and down, but we were doing pretty good, and then that's what was motivating more content producers. So, that's a big deal. So if Incel is growing without the content producers being monetized for it, then that growth there should probably be a lot higher. If you compare it to the growth of MGTOW before that.
Well then, okay, so that's a good point. Monetization, the ability of people to find the content, obviously affects the graph. But if that's the case, like you said earlier, where, and again, I think he asked this question to you first. What's the next level after this? I mean, do you think that?
Tu fais du lightning, toi, hein? Tu devrais te prendre
Yep.
Arcane Cloak
C'est
puis
quoi,
te le
ça?
mettre sur ton left click. Ça te donne un shield. Attends, ça te
Not only
donne
that, but as we've seen,
de la regeneration, un shield qui bloque la vie, puis ça
Ça te
Ça
prend un
donne
shield
du
pour
lightning.
s'en servir?
Just to
Non.
jump in real quick.
Okay.
So
Pense pas.
my thinking is
Non, parce que
there's
tu peux
two
l'utiliser avec un staff.
schools of thought
Ah.
that are kind of going at this right now. There's the tech option or the traditionalism option, and the two schools are kind of fighting each other.
Ah, nice, ça a marché.
One group
Piety,
wants
here we
the other
are.
one wants, women to be
Ah,
in
okay.
competition. And so, like, is there a third option, or like, are we going to see something between one of those two options? That's all I got.
Yeah, you do see this fight between traditionalists and the kind of like the transhumanists, basically,
Yeah.
with the dolls and stuff. And it can go. I mean, I think a good movie to kind of.
C'est tout? Y a pas un autre endroit?
Non, non, c'est fini, tu fais un temps de portal puis on rentre.
On va dire, contrairement à toi, je me suis pas restarté genre 16 persos de ce jeu-là.
Ryan Gosling, what his girlfriend was a digital hologram.
16, mon cher, j'en ai eu plus que 16.
Ouais, c'est ça. J'en ai genre fait 4, mais j'en ai joué. J'ai joué le double de ton temps.
2049 Los Angeles, there's like hookers that are
Quest, man, what the fuck?
Gosling was. So
Ah, j'ai plus par la
you kind of
suite.
see what happens
Ah,
in
fuck, là, faut qu'on aille dans la
2049,
Weaver's
Blade Runner,
Chamber.
is that
Tout ça déjà
there's
fait.
kind of a
Yep,
dystopia, but
fait
it's
que ouvre un
technologically
nouveau
advanced
instance.
dystopia, 'cause Los Angeles
Ouais, ben
downtown,
avant de
you still
rentrer
have the
dedans, là.
holograms, you still have the androids, but outside of it, you have a huge seawall.
Je pense qu'il me
have a
semble qu'elle est dans ce
whole,
coin-là.
dead desert of metal parts everywhere where there's child slaves working it. So we can go to ways that combine
ça
all
c'est
this. We can
Alira.
go, because look at traditionalism in the Amish. The
Ok,
Amish have
c'est plus loin
tripled
par là,
since
me
like the
semble. Me
90s.
semble que c'est
They've-
complètement à
they're
droite.
basically breaking a million. So I think we can kind of see a mixture of it, just like Blade Runner 2049 was, where you do see some groups kind of shifting back towards traditionalism, and then but I think the majority of society is going to go on this route that we're currently heading, and what that route is, it's the end of
Live it up.
monogamy. I did a podcast with the podcast called Sea Realm and the guy called KMO, and that's on our channel too, and that's what he called the podcast was the end of
T'es
monogamy,
où,
because this is
Weavers?
what's happening is back before kind of the rise of the internet. and
Cherche donc,
before
toi,
women
quelque part
entering the labor
dans
force,
l'autre
that
direction.
there was kind of a social contract for men that, okay, you're gonna get out, you can get your factory job, you can
Ouais.
buy a house, get 2 cars.
C'est
and
généralement en bas à
you're-
droite.
Basically, the boomers were almost guaranteed a wife.
Ah
In
non,
fact, they
parce
had-
qu'il y a
had a
le
very
truc en
good
bas à
sexual
droite, c'est-à-dire qu'il va
dynamic
être en haut à
because they
gauche.
decided to actually go with the sexual revolution, and hey, that's great. Instead of having a wife, I can maybe have 2 girlfriends or whatever. That's kind of what the prevailing thought was, because they had
Ok,
a
ouais,
very
t'as
good
raison, parce que moi,
demographics
j'ai
in
rien
them as
trouvé
well.
ici.
They had- I put in the documentary, it was like 2 eligible women for every 1 man, and that's kind of flipped on its side now. And so we go from that to the sexual revolution, and this is the path we've been. Ever since then, is that we've been kind of we went to like serial monogamy, which is like people getting divorced now, and now we're just going to absolute back to where we were 8,000 years ago. 8,000 years ago, agriculture started. We went from hunter to gatherers to like an agricultural structure, and that's when inequality came in. That's when lords had like 10,000.
Ossuary, what the fuck, c'est genre
So
l'acte
that's when you saw the rise
6,
of,
7?
2.
it's called,
Ossuary?
Ça fait combien de temps que ça commence? Ça fait 3 heures. Il y a du monde qui
Polygyny is,
ont
it's
fini
gender
la
neutral,
campagne
but
dans 1 heure.
polygyny means 1 man and a lot of women.
Yes.
And
Non, non, non. Suri, c'est la première fois que tu y vas. Faut qu'ils refassent le jeu si on veut. Là.
Un truc d'essence.
Sweet.
Et un smuggler's cache. Nice.
That was kind of a golden era of where men could, because women were disenfranchised from the labor force, they can actually attain men.
Ah, pogne-le, pogne-le,
because
pogne-le,
that's the only
tiens.
way a woman can enter the middle class.
I
Now
call
college.
Moi j'ai pas eu un contrat à place, which is pretty good. Attends, le truc d'essence c'est par là.
Basically, that's
Ouais,
the
ok.
social contract. You be a good guy, you get your factory job.
Pour
or
une
you go,
mutting
you know,
essence
do
of
whatever.
greed.
You go be a good guy, and you're basically guaranteed a wife by the structure. You're guaranteed monogamy. That's how it was for the boomers. That's why what these boomer MGTOWs talk about is just unreal to Zoomers coming
Ok,
up right
on
now.
revient.
The social contract to keep civilization running was socialism in the bedroom for men, so that every man could get an equal distribution of female sexuality. And now we're starting to see the massive breakdown of that. And so we're going backwards in time. But societies were always matriarchal, you know, if women were left to their own devices. But those were societies that were hunter-gathered, you know. So
Yeah, they didn't do much.
we have high technology combined with hunter-gatherer mentalities that are kind
rien en haut?
of together. It's almost like our technology.
Je sais
is
pas, je suis descendu
developing
par en
and
bas,
going
par
but
brain
our
fart.
social technology and our social lives are going
J'étais mort contre cette araignée là en plus.
It's kind of like everything's
Ah, la
being
bosse,
torn
ouais.
apart in two different directions.
Well, when
Ah, c'est des choses qui arrivent. Ça change tellement rien.
back to hunter-gatherer, where polygyny was sort of the go-to as far as reproduction.
But that was
You don't have to go back there.
But that was the beginning of the agricultural revolution. So once that happened, I'm sure the guys who didn't get any mates started getting together and being like, "Hey, let's pick a leader. Okay, Bob over there is our leader. Okay, now what are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna go to the guy with the 17 wives, and we're gonna say, look, if you don't give us a percentage of your crop yield, we're just gonna burn it all down, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna keep one, maybe 2 to 1, but you got to give the rest to the wives to us, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you see advanced civilization. So pretty much the incels got together and created a government, and then basically went and took the wealthy landowner and basically forced him to redistribute. And so,
Well,
go ahead.
maybe Islam was right about something.
What was he right about?
Women.
Right about women, yeah.
We should put that on a T-shirt and sell it. You know?
No. That's actually a meme that the people would in like Western in like the UK they actually would put that, and actually in
On phone
America
booths,
too. They would write that. Yeah, you saw that.
I made a shirt. I made a shirt that said, "We found a solution to feminism," and I put the symbol of Islam on it. It's on my Teespring shop, but I'm surprised that it's still even there. And I put that together before that had even started. So people were like, "Oh my God, you did it first!" And I'm like,
it really drives the left mad because they first have to accept Islamic immigration, but they also have to have feminism.
Yeah.
So that's how of a clown world we have, is that we are importing Islamic migrants into our countries, but in the same time they knock heads as feminism. It's contradictory to feminism.
Well, it's the cognitive dissonance.
You gotta pick.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance is massive, right? It's like does not compute, right?
Well, that's the thing is, if Islam was right about women.
Tu viens-tu, on est proche de l'acte 3 là.
And I'm bringing up what you mentioned first in the.
Je pense qu'on a oublié un trial, man.
Non.
We'll get into that later.
C'est sûr?
T'as raison, on a peut-être un qu'on a pas fait.
That was a big part of what you said. That
quickly.
Part of.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go.
Quick.
I
So
was just gonna. Go
so
ahead.
quickly, I've got something that I just came up with a few weeks ago. That it makes perfect sense, and it also creates a situation where there's cognitive dissonance. And so I thought about it. I was talking to that Fat Cat character. I'm sure many of you are probably acquainted with her. And she told me, you know, I don't like the dolls for women. You know, I go, what do you mean? She's like, well, if you've got a male doll, a doll with a dick, and you're gonna use it as a woman. Well, the first problem is there's 2 dicks. You have to pull the one out that's flaccid, and then you have to put the erect one in. I started laughing. Like, what is,
that's
what
very
is this,
big.
like Transformers, like literally, like
Elemental overload.
So I thought about it. I was like, well, what if I took my technology that I'm developing, and instead of actually selling it to men first, I marketed it and sold it to women. And you know, the guy, they would be contacting and talking to a guy, and his face would be projected on the doll through the projector in the head of the doll. And the dick would get hard based on sensors that on his side. So if she danced or she did something naughty, it would turn him on. And so like literally the member would like fill up with air or liquid or whatever you could design it as. So it would get erect. So she would literally be turning the doll on, right? And then when she rode the doll, he would have sensors. And then the sensors would be built into the doll so that information would be stimulating the guy on the other end as well. And then if he had an orgasm, there might be like a liquid, like, I don't know, like Kahlua or something that came out of the tip of the rubber dick, so that way she would get off on the fact that she was giving a guy an orgasm on the other side of the world, right? And on top of that, he could be one of the top, like, so women would go through that like a chat site and they would be like, oh, that guy's hot. I'm gonna pay $200 an hour for him, right? And then they would get their doll. They basically connect to him. They basically load up into the doll. And then they could basically fuck him through the doll, right? And so that would give women the democratization of chat.
The added lightning.
So they could pay for the service. I don't know, but the whole idea was if you do something like that first, even if you don't make money off of it, if you sell it to women first, and then you say, well, we're also selling some for lesbians over here, right? And well, the lesbian is just the male sex doll, but you're basically selling it without selling it, right? And even though it'll probably be the biggest seller, and it's targeted towards men, when anyone criticizes you, you say, well, we started this company for women. This is all about women's empowerment and giving women access to technology so they can have sex in new and innovative ways. I told a couple women this idea, and they were like, can I get involved in this? This sounds great. And I was like, and these are the same women I said, oh, you know, what do you think of the sex brothel? Like, horrible, man. Horrible. Right? And I'm just, and it didn't, like, there's that does not compute thing. And they even said, you could even create it for men, too, by having...
Ah, on finit la mission d'Ironheart, là.
Oh my god, like...
Pour avoir l'option de quest.
It leads to the same outcome, but you don't accept it. Like, am I missing something?
No, we're talking about that's a
Yes.
Well, I find it wild. Why would a woman need a sex doll? I mean, just load up your regular, you know, 5 out of 10 female on any dating site, not just Tinder, and she gets thousands of options.
Why does she need 10 dildos in the drawer next to her bed? Right? When there's a lineup of guys ready to like basically tickle her feet, and she's not taking that option. Right? So look, I've been to women's events, and like there's literally dildo booths, like women's shows where they sell stuff for women, and there's like 5 or 10-year-old girls walking past the dildo booth, and there's like leather dolls with like like standing there, and I'm like, this is perfectly allowed in a venue like this with children, you know. So I'm thinking I could put this doll for women in the middle of this women's show, and there'd be children walking by, and it would be perfectly socially acceptable. I could get a woman to be the spokesperson, and no one would bat an eye. No one would say anything. No one would go nuts. There wouldn't be crazy feminists in universities trying to get me banned. They would be accepting it with open arms.
I think they would turn to the dolls out of spite. There was I don't know if you guys saw this. Thinking Ape did a video on it. There was another Martin Goldberg about there's a girl recently. She's like a conservative out of like Los Angeles or something. She's one of these conservative dots that do videos, kind of like appealing to the traditionalists and the red pill and the manosphere kind of. And she was complaining that she knows all these. I don't know if you guys seen this video. It was recent. She complained that all her friends, like all the men, are just garbage. And she knows all these attractive friends that she has that have good jobs, good income. And I think women because that's what women do is they shoot at least in the sexual market, they shoot for a very small amount of men. Yeah. And these men know they have options, so they don't settle down. They ghost them, they leave, they go on to the next woman. So the women are increasingly they're also hating all men. Meanwhile, they only choose like a 5 to 10% range of them. So I could see I could see the whole.
They're in the workforce now. That's again I mentioned before. She's got a PhD. How many other guys have a PhD? We already know how corrupt the education system, where it's geared towards women's critical thinking skills, where it's just memorizing stuff. So, how many trade students? Are there any trade schools anymore in the U.S.?
why would women choose it out of spite? This is the answer. This is what you brought up. So what do you think about that?
I mean, you can just see from the video from today. Let me find it. It's just it's like a high tier kind of like Stacy type of girl that has a big following. She says, you know, the men that she dates are all trash. I mean,
yeah,
I think
it blew up. She even said, yeah, men are trash. She said that. Like it blew up yesterday.
So, basically, in this model where a lot of women are chasing a small subject of men, those men get to choose, and so they don't have to commit. So she's just sad that these chads don't commit. It's out of spite.
Well, she's not chasing all men.
She's just chasing the chads.
And the chads are trash. That's what. That's
yeah,
what
the chads are trash because she has like a one-night stand, and the guy goes to her, and she's like, oh, what the hell, you know. But I can see women using what you're talking about, Sam, out of spite, because she could say, oh, well, I don't need those men, and you know, just like the men kind of do, and they can have like a MGTOW or whatever. I mean, look at the rise of female dating. That's one of the fastest growing Reddits ever. It's basically a red pill, but for women. It's like the pink pill. That's what they call it.
On est plus silencieux que tout à l'heure, hein?
Yeah, j'écoute une vidéo de Sandman en même temps.
De quoi?
Un vidéo de Sandman.
Qui ça?
Probablement le grand chef inquisiteur des misogynes.
Ah.
Un des... probablement la personne qui coine le terme MGTOW, puis le plus vieux MGTOW out there.
Ok. Pourquoi tu l'écoutes?
Parce qu'il y a des très bonnes opinions, puis qu'il a très souvent raison.
Guys that they can get a one-night stand with, but they can't have these guys settle down with them. That's the guys who they chase. They chase what's on.
So the lower 20% of women can't even get a date with those guys, right? Like those guys won't even look at them. So with this technology, they could actually pay to interact with one of those guys through a doll, and then that would take those guys off the market.
En ce moment, il parle de le marketing des sex dolls vers la population féminine. Que, en gros, ça serait inutile de essayer d'amener les sex dolls comme étant un objet sexuel. S'il faut commencer par le vendre aux femmes, comme ça va être accepté en société, et après ça, les hommes vont pouvoir en avoir.
Hein? Ça existe déjà des sex dolls.
Ouais, c'est très mal vu, puis il y a personne qui se dit qu'officiellement il y en a une, puis c'est très stigmatisé. Puis il y a beaucoup de pays qui essayent des bans, puis en fait, c'est très difficile d'en avoir. Il y a quasiment pas de pays qui a le droit d'en produire. Beaucoup de compagnies qui essaient d'en produire se font genre vandaliser.
Well, there's a meme that says women won't sleep with a guy who lives with his mother, but they'll sleep with a guy who lives with his wife.
Yeah, that's true.
And women agree with that. As far as I've seen, in my own experience, they're okay with that. They're like, yes, that's absolutely right. That's what we'll do.
Well, that's the polygynists, and the women. Their brains are, I guess, are lazy. They want pre-validation. So if they see a guy that's married, they're like, what does he have? You know, that's the best way to. It's like a catch-22. What's the best way to get a job? Is to already have a job. You know, what's the best way to get a girlfriend? Is to already have a girlfriend. That's I just experienced this myself. When you're in a long-term relationship and the woman around you know that, all of a sudden the interest is there. But then once you lose that, the interest is gone. I mean, it's funny. It's pre-validation. I mean, woman brains. I mean, look at the IQ difference between men. I mean, it's like men's are like they have more extremes. The women are all standardized in the middle. So basically, all and that's why females are kind of copy picture. Look at the e-girl, the rise of the e-girl style. They're just all emulating this. Yeah.
Ok, j'ai infini de mana regen. Check ça, je perds jamais de mana.
They see what the top girl, what type of chad she gets, and they all try to emulate that down the line.
It's not just
that's Kim Kardashian and that's Paris Hilton.
But it doesn't just have to do with who looks to get dates and get husbands. It has to do with business too. I know women who emulate other women who think those other women are successful, but their businesses are failing, and they're basically copycatting failing businesses. And I told them that over and over again, and I've given them the right business.
Il m'a one shot.
Because they're listening to what the woman is
Ah ouais?
other women who look
J'étais comme, ok, il va peut-être me hit, mais je pensais que j'étais assez loin, mais non.
Why we're having a lot of crisis now through social media is that society itself is structured to kind of look at the survivorship bias and apex fallacy. Apex fallacy means that we refer to the winners, we refer to like the top 10%. That's what social media curates. What do you see on social media? You don't see the surveillance, you only see the highlights.
Yeah, the
women are more manipulated by that. Men kind of know they can read between the lines, but women are completely
c'est juste un 4 second.
You know, that's
Damn it.
why
Women are they're groupthink.
fatigue.
Yeah.
They're not.
I think
They're
we
not
could have been
uh,
friends.
individualists. Yeah, that's biological.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to make a point. Based again, I'm going back to your video. You said that,
Acte
that
3.
was made by a friend, but you added to on the Black Pill Solutions in the Incel crisis. Deregulate the sexual market. Implement contracts.
Quelle voice line
Now,
de
what
merde. Where emperors rule
Regulate
or
the sexual
die
market and
like
implement,
everyone else.
polygamy
comme, hein?
contracts,
Ta gueule.
which is exactly what the Muslims did.
The Mormons did that.
C'était
too.
vraiment pas pertinent comme intervention, c'est excellent.
What if we did that?
I mean, we could do all kinds of things, but we're like, okay,
Une
what's
bonne manaflasse.
most realistically going to happen in, say, the next 5 years? That's what I want.
Bonne
That's
inflexion.
what everybody wants to know, because then we can kind of map the future a few steps in advance, but we can't map it out 20
Too
steps.
much
Basically, what's
clutter.
going on now is that with COVID-19, we're gonna have like a lost generation of men that are gonna become instantly incels, not even gonna be able to navigate a dating market and
Alexis?
try and
Oui.
quote unquote, or
Ah.
like try to approach.
T'as-tu
or
parlé avec
just
Clarissa?
instantly gonna be put
Ouais.
into the incel
Moi, je suis en train de
category
checker mon
just for the
inventaire.
nature of how the dating market has changed during COVID. So we're
On
gonna
demandait.
see. We're basically. I think what's gonna have to happen is we're gonna have to.
D'ailleurs, je te conseille de prendre Wave of
That's what they
Conviction
need
si
to
tu
do
peux,
with
comme
the
cast
mass
on crit si tu veux.
population is they manage
Parce que
expectations.
ça donne
Old
Elemental
expectations of
Exposure
having
qui fait que tu fais
girlfriend
25%
18
plus
and then
d'Elemental
having
damage sur
multiple
contre ta target.
girlfriends
C'est la
by
grosse
25,
wave
getting
jaune là,
married
que je fais.
around,
Là.
late
Ouais.
20s, early
Très
30s,
bon
that's
avec
gonna be
n'importe
gone.
quel
It's gonna be,
It's
hey,
already gone.
yeah, it's already gone. And
n'importe
that's
quel
gonna be
caster
the expectation is like, you know
qui
what?
font
A
du
lot of
Elemental,
guys aren't gonna have a
pas du
girlfriend, and
Chaos.
you're just gonna have to do OnlyFans or do something else,
Oh,
or do something else in your life.
on
you
en
know?
a manqué
It's
une.
basically the end of monogamy. We're gonna see a more
On a
disintegrating
manqué une
monogamy. We're
Ascendancy
seeing more
shit.
unstable relationships because
Yep.
relationships now they're very unstable, especially as a guy. You get into one, it's very crazy. It's very chaotic. The girl is always surrounded by tons of guys hitting her up. There's a lot of things that have to happen for society to have stable relationships. There has to be like common contract among people to not move around partners. And what's happening now, you go on Reddit, what are the top most on
Crypt
relationships?
level
What are the
1
top
puis
most,
Chamber
like,
of Sin level
23
2.
male found out my 23
Tu veux qu'on aille
female
faire tout
ex
de
is
suite ou on le
sleeping
fait
with
plus
my
tard?
24 male
On
best
peut le
friend.
faire là,
It's
là.
happening over
Tant que ça
and
fait
over
encore de
again. There was a
l'XP,
big guy on YouTube
faire ça.
that does coding.
T'es où là?
His name is Josh
C'est dans quoi?
He said the same thing. His
C'est
best
dans
friend
lequel?
stole his
The
girlfriend,
Crypt.
and they
Ah, ouais, c'est vrai. Zut.
overwhelmingly. I mean,
Jesus
this
Christ.
is
Ok, c'est ici.
so this is to happen.
Pour le
5 years.
Fresh Fire Ruins.
Incels
Puis là, c'est
that are
Fell
populating
Shrine.
it's already
Excusez.
gone from
C'est au
2 to
fond à
23.
droite, c'est ça?
Again, that's guys who are
Yep.
getting it. Guys have
Là, il y a une
guys
mission
who
de
are getting
Ironheart
it.
si
I
tu veux
mean,
la
a lot of
faire.
the guys' image is the
Pour aller
girl
dans la
around, right?
ménagerie
To a
après.
lot of young men. And I think that we're gonna reach that peak when
Whoa!
it's gonna go 50% or more.
Je
become
suis
incel in
mort.
the next 5 years, and we're gonna see a lot of long-term relationships fall apart. We're gonna see marriages fall
Je me
apart.
suis fait
We're probably gonna see the
omnipéter.
end of
Yo!
monogamy.
What the
Death blows.
fuck?
And I think COVID has accelerated this by 10 years.
C'est une zone niveau 16 puis je me fais torcher, man.
I was just saying, why not just walk
Ah,
away?
les beasts. Des fois, sont forts.
You have to be able to be in something before you have the right to walk away. But if you're not in anything, then you haven't walked away.
It's like,
Tab,
that's why
what?
for a lot of us, it's like MGTOW. It's MSTOW to us. It's like a lot of men are just sent their own way. Sure, there's some MGTOWs out there that had relationships and not how to walk away from, but most
Too
guys don't have
much
that option to
clutter.
begin with. It's like putting the cart
Right.
before the horse.
Okay,
That's
so
why
Non,
you're
j'ai...
saying that
Ah, ok,
you've
c'est
got
niveau.
nothing to walk away from.
Je suis niveau
Exactly.
24, ok, nice.
So it's
But
like
what-
fox and a grapes. The fox
Wow!
and a grapes
Ah,
analogy
je vais
where
planter.
it's like, oh, the fox can't reach
Mon
the
dieu, il doit y avoir
grapes. and
tant
it
de
says,
monde de
well, I
connecté.
don't want
Là.
those grapes anyway. And that's what.
Toi, t'as-tu planté ou non?
Oui, je serais fait ramener au,
Ah,
menu-
ok.
au menu.
That's a good thing. That's-
Ben, moi aussi, je sais pas.
But that's
Comment?
a
C'est quoi
choice.
déjà? Ah, c'est C. C'est ça? C? C, ouais. Non, c'est pas C pantoute. C'est H, non. C'était S? S, S.
It's about confidence. It's really about, it's about you. You die. You're going to die.
Évidemment, ça va avoir reset notre nos maps. Ah non, même pas, nice. L'instant, c'était encore
It's
là.
not just about.
Et on a
it's
perdu
not
notre
just
progrès.
about confidence.
Damn it.
Okay, in the ninth
On a
grade,
perdu
I
genre
was
30 secondes de
confident,
progrès.
and I was skinny and scrawny, and I hit on girls, and they didn't want me. I went away for the summer, and then the middle of the next year, I worked out. I put on like 10, 15, 20 pounds of muscle. Suddenly, women were just coming up to me, and it had nothing to do with confidence. It had everything to do with looks. That's it.
All right,
Well,
yeah.
Lucky
at the
bitch.
same time, though, when I say walk away, I'm talking about on a bigger scale. I'm talking about the system that we live in. We live under. None of us decided to live under this system. None of us decided to none of us decided on COVID-19.
Well, that's
Like,
why
none of us.
That's why I wanted to basically get myself a fifth wheel or a tiny home and live half the year in Europe and live half the year here and not have to buy a property anywhere and basically say F you to the system where my living expenses could be $1,000 bucks a month. But again, I had to have enough capital to do that in the first place. If I didn't have that capital to start because I didn't have a job because of COVID or because this is the ability to save was not there because everything was getting more and more expensive. $2,500 rents for a single one bedroom apartment.
Y a-tu une side quest ici à part la Trail of Incidents?
So you have to look at it from where you were born, where you were going, what your experiences were, and so the younger guys, like, what are the younger guys' experiences besides not being able to find a girlfriend because they're all looking for a 23-year-old guy? Thousands of them are all paying attention to one 23-year-old guy on Instagram. So what?
Right. Well, my answer to that would be you got to look inward. You have to seriously.
But the odds are like playing the lottery at that point, just to get a date, right? Because
you gotta realize when you're hearing, I'm not gonna say this, but what a lot of people are hearing, like when people are listening to this, or young incels, and they're hearing this, it seems to them,
Well,
you're not trying to say this, but it seems to them it's like a fuck you, I got mine attitude.
Well, hold on a second.
Hold
on a second. On my channel, there are no young incels listening. Maybe on yours, yes, and you're absolutely. They're probably thinking that fuck you. And you're right. You're absolutely right.
They're not saying fuck you. They're saying that what you're putting down is like when you make that argument, it's like to them it sounds like you're saying fuck you, I got mine. I had my relationships, I had the experience, whatever. I can walk away. That's what we see in this MGTOW.
I know.
And a lot of young guys are like, well, at least you got to experience that. I want to experience that. I want to go through that. My hormones are raging. I want to experience that. I want to get companionship. It's like it's okay to walk away from once you get a few experiences, but these guys have nothing to initially walk away from.
You need to get that experience in your 20s. If you don't, you're gonna have regrets. You're gonna have resentment.
You're gonna have mental illness.
Yes,
you're gonna have mental illness. You're gonna. This is what's driving mental illness in men.
Bon, Crip Level 2, il y a quoi?
Hundreds of men and hundreds of women, and he says the most.
Je vais juste rentrer dedans pour avoir la quest pour me rappeler qu'il faut que j'y aille. Tu veux-tu la faire tout de suite ou?
Yeah, let's go. C'est une quest pour un free skill point.
Men are neurotic until they settle down in a long-term relationship, and I experienced this myself. I was only able to finish college because I got a steady relationship, and that motivated me. That was a boost to me. It's like, yeah, you're not supposed to depend on women, but honestly, not having one in a society that says you should have one. If you're not, you're a loser. I mean, it destroys a man. Sandman, you're completely right. If a man in his 20s does not get that, there's got to be something to walk away from. And if men don't have that, initial experience, or at least a bit of
je viens de commencer à voir le CLS sur l'effet de Arrow Thunder. C'est juste que c'est pas comme Arrow de Vache. C'est que tes amis explosent pas ou Arrow
Non, c'est ça.
C'est qu'ils font juste.
Non, il y a du lightning qui commence à tomber, c'est ça.
Exact.
C'est pour ça que je te disais, comme, mais pourquoi tu cherches une explosion?
Il est moins hot le skin qu'avec Arrow de Vache. C'est fucking sick avec Arrow de Vache. Ça fait genre des espèces de points célestiaux d'explosion. C'est fucking nice.
What did I do when I was 24? I packed up and left. I moved abroad. I got it out of my system.
But even that option, is disappearing.
Option's going away.
That option doesn't exist anymore. But what I'm saying is that, okay, and maybe this is another, maybe this won't be understood, but what I'm trying to say is maybe there's a bigger thing to walk away from. And I'm talking about the direction our entire society is headed. Put aside the desire for sex or the desire for procreation, the desire for relationships. Put all that aside for a moment. Maybe there is something bigger. But again,
that is society.
Yeah, exactly.
Too much clutter.
That's, people say, what is our civilization? Is it the buildings? Is it the cars? Is it the no, it's the people. That's what it's all about. And our operating system is completely screwed up right now. And it's just falling apart.
System was monogamy to facilitate a civilization.
Il y a un skill. Ah, c'est des respect.
The conclusion we went to.
More regulated religion.
Yeah, but that's gonna lead to more
Moi,
wars.
j'ai-tu un
Islam-
Val, je pourrais
Islam
tout de
tries
suite
that.
essayer
Look
de le
at
corrupt.
Islam in the Middle East tries
Non, je
that,
pense
and
pas
look,
qu'on
they
a
have
eu
a refugee
le
crisis.
Val.
They try to expel
Val
their
d'or.
ex-men to the
Non,
Europe. That's
dommage.
why we have the whole reason why we
Ça veut
have a
dire que je peux me
refugee
pogner
crisis.
ça tout de suite.
It's 80% men.
Return.
Look,
Do you think
97%
that's
of illegal
why they're
immigrants.
here, though? That's
Humanity
not the Muslim men aren't here because of a crisis
Alors,
of religion. They're here because the West and the people in charge of the West.
Well, it's a
wants
lot
them.
of factors, but
Yeah.
no, polygyny is.
Toi,
Look at if you
t'es-tu
can track
proche d'un dual
terrorism
dual
and the
slot, toi?
events of terrorism,
Pas tant, non?
it increases the more
Hein?
polygynous.
Moi, j'en ai un déjà, juste
the more
genre prochain
polygamy
là-bas.
there is in a
Je
Muslim
vais pouvoir le
country, the more
mettre, qui est quand même
unstable it is.
The
bon.
And that's what's
suicide,
happening.
the suicide bombers are doing it for the
Pourcent de-
virgins,
de la
right?
mettre dans la
Like,
même
that's
chair,
what
je
they're
peux
doing
la
it for.
mettre.
So
Yeah, but why would they do it for virgins?
because they haven't had anything yet. They haven't. No one's offered them
why
anything.
we're making a documentary on why the Islamic State is really the Incel state. Why was
Yeah.
there a bunch of Western men that left their comfortable life? Because they look.
But who gave them that option? Who gave them
What do
that
you mean?
option?
That
The
option is
West
in
gave
their
them
hands.
that option. To leave, the West gave them that option. Where would they go without it? So the West gave them that option to leave, right? To migrate, the West gave them that option. It wasn't like these poor Muslim
It's
countries
cheap
said,
labor.
go, here's money, go. They didn't say that. The West opened that door up for them. Our leaders.
Yeah, but these men are pushed out. Like the dynamics of these countries in North Africa and Middle East is if a father has a bunch of poor, if he's in a poor household, he has a bunch of daughters and men. He says to the daughters, "No, you wait it out. You wait it out till you get a rich guy, and you marry. You can be one of. You better be a fifth wife of that rich guy, or you better. That's better than marrying some poor guy. And that's what's happening. I mean, why are 80% of migrants into Europe men? Why are 97% of migrants, illegal immigrants into the EU
They're
are
men.
men? Yeah,
And-
because
and-
they're being
guess
pushed
what?
out.
Guess what? The countries they came from didn't give them that option. The countries they're going to gave them that option. That's a fact.
Là, tu t'en viens dessus
Yeah,
ou.
they-
Because
open up
if we
the- our-
didn't allow them,
Yeah, je suis en
they
train
wouldn't
de
leave.
checker mes ones.
And then
Mes
they're so
spells.
frustrated that they do mass sexual assaults.
They rape people.
Exactly.
They
Well,
rape
look at
people.
the attacker in Toronto. He was from Armenia, was he not?
So much of what's going on in society, it's never the media won't ever cover it, but it's
No.
due to incel crisis. It's due to an excess of men. It's due
Moi,
to
je suis arrivé au
this
crématorium,
balance.
fait que tu peux
This we can never have.
TP
I
sur
think the
moi,
nukes
et
will
voilà.
fall
Great.
before we even have a
Il y a un
legitimate
trial
conversation
ici, si je me souviens bien.
about sexual dynamics.
Non?
It's just
Yeah,
impossible.
probably.
It's just
Probably.
impossible.
Dans pas long, on va pas avoir notre première
Article
ascendancy.
talking about, hey, 33% of men are sexist for this year. If you post that, the women are like, well, it's porn, video games, whatever. The circles never
Mais ouais,
stop.
première
I mean, you can
ascendancy,
put
c'est
these
tout
people
à
in front
chier, là.
with the data, and
Ça
you
va
can-
servir
that's
à
why
rien.
in the documentary prior data over data, but there's
Mais
still
ça me
the
donne
comments are
des
cool.
free
Well, I don't
spec
think
points,
it's
I guess,
hard,
mais
it's
c'est
completely,
pas.
it's
c'est pas
mind-boggling. These
l'idéal.
people will just.
Moi, mes
they-
flashes vont
There
s'auto-générer
is no
facilement.
negotiation in this anymore. You just can't have a rational conversation in society. That's why we're getting so
Parce que
polarized.
justement, un des
Recent
systèmes les plus
mistakes. I mean,
importants de mon build,
it's
c'est le
getting to
flasque.
the point where people
Well,
Pour
people
avoir
aren't
infini
convinced
de
by
mana.
data anymore.
And
Puis
when
utiliser
you say
Archmage qui fait que ça
polarization,
booste mon.
especially in the West,
Plus mon skill coûte cher en mana, plus il fait de dégâts. Puis t'as une façon de pouvoir avoir de la infinite mana regen. C'est genre.
And it was regulating social media. And
Alors, qu'est-ce que t'as
honestly,
looté?
we had the guest on.
Une carte.
We had Andy Nowicki
Ouais, c'est
on.
quoi?
I think he was the one before
Une
this
carte.
one, wasn't it?
C'est quoi la carte?
Je sais
That's
pas.
correct. So,
Je sais que c'était une carte d'eau.
he recently posted a video,
Tu
and Andy's
me
close
la,
to
me
mine.
la mettre dans le.
He's been married, he's had kids, but he's a low status male at his point.
Vivina token, 10 orb of regret.
Just like myself. And one of the things he mentioned was that
Ça vaut
social
probablement
media
des
must die.
chaos. Moi, je la vendrais à ta place. Toi, t'as-tu une stash tab ou non?
Non.
Premium stash tab ou non?
Non.
Regulated social media.
Tu vois.
And I think that's
Je donne
one
pas
of the
d'argent à
reasons
Tencent.
why we are so polarized right now.
Yeah,
C'est beaucoup dire que tu donnes l'argent à Tencent en
Lanier,
mettant ça.
I forgot his last name, but he actually worked. He's actually the father of virtual reality. He actually worked for Google. He sold a company for Google. Now he works in Microsoft in the R&D department. He says social media is basically the worst thing that's
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a
ever
là-dedans,
happened. It's a Pandora's
It
box
is.
we open. Because
It's horrible.
because your negative emotions of human beings are more they're faster to get in this profit machine that we have, that is social media and this expansive machine. They know they need to push negative emotions, and
Yes.
that's why we see everything's getting polarized. Men are hating women, women are hating men. I mean, it
Yes.
goes both ways. The genders are being split, the races are being split. Social media is the biggest Pandora box we've ever opened. It's going to be one of our demise. I mean, the Islamic State cannot rise to its height.
D'ailleurs,
without,
je
you
te
know,
conseille, je sais que je me répète, là, mais si justement tu veux pas donner de l'argent à Tencent, mais tu veux de l'argent à une bonne petite compagnie, là, achète-toi Hades, tu vas vraiment aimer.
Just to kind of summarize the idea, was that before social media, we could have individuals would have conversations and disagreements without an audience, and now that our opinions have an audience, and so we are active, we are giving our opinions based on
the response we're going to get from people.
From people, yes, exactly. And that is what is polarizing. And so your number 4 point, regulating social media, 100% agree with. I think it should be. I think it should shut down.
Yeah, it should be shut down. I mean, there is. It's unrealistic, but if we were to say get a candidate and we get a lobby group, which would never happen, of course, but we would just say, hey, it's bad for the kids, it's bad for women. It's like you just use these liberal points against them. You say, hey, social media is causing teen suicide, kid suicide. Shut it down. You know, regulate it, minimize it, whatever. Just have only forums.
If it hurts the kids, for our masters in charge, they don't care. But if it hurts the women, maybe.
Bon, fuck Herald
you
of
gotta
Thunder,
spin it that way.
time to
That's,
put on,
you know, especially
Wrath.
with like one of the points is female-only
Puis je vais
immigration into the West,
acheter
because
un autre
there's a
skill.
gender imbalance in the West. There's gender imbalance
Connectivity, je vais essayer
everywhere. We
de
have a massive oversurplus of males
utiliser les
due to a lot of
curses.
factors, a lot of selective births,
Yeah,
a lot
j'aime
of
bien
one-child
conductivity.
policy in China. The West is also by default, you know, there's so many more male births, and now males aren't dying off at the rate they were, and that's one of the things driving this is a male surplus. So we have.
On va aller voir.
In Western countries, we have this
Ça.
power because everybody wants to
On va
immigrate here. We
acheter.
say, hey, we'll only take single 18 to 35 women or whatever, 18 to 29, whatever, to distort the sexual market here back to in the favor of men. You know,
Shit,
that doesn't favor
J'ai même
women.
pas assez pour m'acheter Spellslinger.
no,
c'est la
you
Hesse.
just spin it. You
Watch
just spin it.
yourself.
You say, hey, women in the third world, they're having
careful.
their clits cut off. They're having, you know, all this stuff happening to them. So they deserve to immigrate here and be safe. You have to spin it. You have to play these ideological games.
Well,
but this is all unrealistic, of course.
But the women here don't want added competition.
Nice. All right.
They don't want other women coming here and
Spellslinger
then having to
time,
compete with
baby.
them for.
Exactly. You have to.
All right.
Again, it would have to be a huge operation that's unrealistic
See
to
you.
manipulate. They say, hey, females in the third world, they're having it so
Oh,
bad.
faut que je
We need
l'aille
to help them.
plusieurs
We need to
fois.
help
À
our
moins que, ok, non,
sisterhood,
c'est ça.
help the females,
Mais
female
donc,
immigration. You know, we only want women here. We only save. You got it. That'll be the only. These are unrealistic. It's not gonna happen. I assume nuclear war would happen before this. You know, that's seeming more likely every day.
Well, here's another thing you got to keep in mind, as far as population is concerned, is that generally, not always, but generally in history, females kind of outpopulate the males, 51 to 49, and the reason is because males die young compared to females.
in
Females
war.
live longer. Well, that's the
Well,
whole
yeah,
thing.
still, yeah.
It's all compared. I mean, generally we have a surplus of females, and it's a 1%.
No. In the dating sphere, there's a massive oversupply of males. Just look at
No.
type
I'm
in
not talking
single
about
males.
dating. I'm not talking about dating. I'm talking about general population.
Yeah, general population. Kirby is correct. It's exactly right.
It's about 51, 49, and it always stays at that level. And the reason it stays at that level is because the life expectancy of men, and as Sandman said, it's not just about
Attends-moi,
how
Lou,
long
je suis en train
you
de
live
faire de quoi?
or dying of old
Ça te
age.
dérange pas de
It's
m'attendre?
war, it's work, it's many factors.
Oui.
But because of that low,
Tu m'attends 2 secondes?
Yeah, je suis
death
rentré du
rate of
sewer.
men, I mean, lower life expectancy of men,
Shit.
we always see a slightly higher percentage of females on the overall population, right?
But first, what you pointed out in your documentary was something was really interesting with regards to this. Okay, so if the next generation is only half as big or
shit.
3/4 the size of
C'est
the
dans
existing
l'acte 1,
generation,
je pense.
then the older men who are chasing the younger women have less women to choose from, and therefore that also.
Yeah, that's also going to distort it. That's what happened in. There was a interview I had on like NPR, I think, in the documentary, and they said how how it's getting
Okay,
distorted.
select other.
Ever since like 2010, what happened
Yeah.
is it switched from like it became for the boomers they had 2 eligible women for every 1 man boomer, so they could get picky. But it changed. It got worse and worse, and eventually it started. I think beginning in 2010, it became like 2 men for every 1 woman.
Ah,
So
Big, tu veux-tu me
this
donner une
demographic,
orb of
again,
Valkyrie?
in
Attends,
the
je peux en
90s,
acheter
we
un,
had
laisse
an
faire.
over surplus of baby boys
Avec la
being
même
born, and
personne.
these men are coming to age, and now we're seeing utter calamity. We're seeing China; they have an excess between 60 million
T'as-tu
and
une
90
orb of
million young men.
alteration?
I mean, it's getting insane.
And a lot of them are coming to Canada too.
Yeah,
Sûrement,
that's
oui.
why Canada is such a hellhole.
Ah, laisse faire,
Because
j'en ai
you
une,
have
laisse faire.
India, you have China. Guess what? You know, what are the largest 2 countries? China and India. What are proportionally the worst genders,
Okay.
gender balance is India and China.
Oh,
China
shit,
number
I can
1, India
search now.
number 2. Because why?
So
Because
there.
China had the 1-child policy,
Là.
and India has
Yeah.
this extreme selective abortion in favor of male babies being born. So it's funny how the 2 largest populations also have the worst freaking demographics too. So on a global aggregate level, it's a really bad picture. We have a lot of excess of men. It's already in the hundreds of millions. So
A couple weeks ago, I was walking through the mall and I saw 2 different couples, and they were highly attractive Chinese guy, Japanese, I'm not sure, and highly attractive Indian guy, and they were both with a very grotesque, overweight white women. Right, so
Yeah.
so it was the same thing. I looked at it. I pointed out to a friend of mine. We're walking through. He's like, I didn't notice that. I go, well, you should, because you know, like in a lot of ways, a lot of guys, you know, younger than us, that would have been the woman that they would have got, and now they don't get her either. And he's like, he thought about it. He's like, oh, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly true. The juggernaut lie, Matt. Now, I mean, you can go date below the bottom of the barrel, but now we're digging below the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
There's nothing to find.
Yeah.
So it's getting to the point. Basically, yeah, that's kind of be the trend, is that we have a male surplus, a really heavy one, and the statistics are all there. Is that it's coming of age, and it's gonna cause utter calamity. That's why for China, I mean, there was a documentary in China, and they said there was a
What the
factory
fuck,
and
je
they
peux
said,
pas.
I do not
Faut que je
hire
débarre
Chinese males
ma.
because
Ah,
they are
man, faut
way
que je
too
débarre
rowdy to get
manuellement
in
les
fights.
sewers.
They ask out all the women, and the women are better workers because they can sit down, focus, and work. They don't have that crazy sex drive, right? They don't have that crazy testosterone pumping in and out.
Right.
So he said, yeah, I don't hire males. They got because they're all incels. They go fight, and there was a whole documentary on this, and it said, I'm literally replacing all men in the workforce with women, and there's like a triple crisis going on. And then you have a jobs crisis, you have an education crisis, you have this dating crisis. I mean, everything's working to basically kill you.
And that leads us to the black pill.
In Southeast Asia, most of the men just lay around all day, drunk,
Yo, comment ça marche?
Yeah,
ça,
that's
seigneur, pour vrai?
Yeah.
gambling.
Yeah,
carrying
because
commercials,
Southeast
expensive
Asian, they
deux
have
fois.
I mean,
T'as-tu une
compared
over
to
alteration, tu peux me
like
donner?
an African American
Je
male,
les ai
their
pas sur moi, ils
testosterone
sont
is
Intel.
not even, you know,
Ok, tu
I don't know
déranges
what
pas
it would
ton
be,
Intel?
but it's proportionally less. So,
If
Oui,
build
ben
marche pas,
on a le
ça.
waypoint dans pas longtemps.
I would recommend going to
Parce que
Southeast Asia.
mon build marche pas pendant ce temps-là.
But obviously,
I'm not sure. Like Sandman said, like maybe
It's
yeah.
blown
For
up.
what? For marriage or for just for fun?
no, just to get laid.
Yeah,
I'm
but the thing is, there's that yearning instinct, that love. Like, I can go get laid.
Yeah,
It
I'm not
takes-
talking
but
about
just
getting
that
But,
laid.
but yeah, but if you go and you get
Sure.
laid 2, 3, 4
No.
times by the same woman, you're in love, and then I get addicted to that high of love. That's what shuts my brain down and turns me into like a mule, right? But if it's just sex,
Here's the waypoint.
then it's kind of like
Nice.
disappointing, because it's
Exactly.
just like
Of course,
it's like
it's always
I'm
disappointing.
looking more
but-
for the
but-
companionship.
Yes,
I was,
sex,
you know, what got me through sex is like the frosting on the cake. The actual cake was the relationship, was the validation. It was having someone there every day for you, helping you out, cooking for you, or helping helping you with some of your projects. You know, doing activities, because most of our society, it's not made for single male. You go out as a single male, you get shit service. You go out
Oh,
as a
yeah,
couple,
you're done.
your service is awesome. I mean, I was in a couple,
Fucking
especially if you're a
fire.
mixed race couple. Jesus Christ, your service is on the spot. You know, you're getting free shit. You're getting boomer couples talking
Well,
to you.
go get a couple in Southeast Asia and
Well,
you'll be mixed.
But you don't have to. You don't have to find. Okay, like you don't have to find. You have to go halfway around the world to find that. For
That's
example,
what's
for
fucked up.
Well, you-
That's,
you
I mean,
do.
that's
okay, for me,
literally.
for
Yeah,
okay, I'll give you an example. So I talk to my cousin all the time, and I get female validation from my cousin. She's in a relationship with a guy from Turkey, right? And she's a university professor. She's smart, I want to talk to a smart woman that's actually educated and can actually think, have a like if I brought her into this conversation right now, she can not only hold her own, but she would actually bring things up that we weren't even aware of. That's
well, you better bring her on, because I don't believe that.
And she speaks English too, so maybe I should. Maybe I should bring her on. We'll see how that works.
It'd be a first, because we've never had a woman on this chat.
But
That's nice.
again, what I'm saying is, I've actually told her about, I haven't told her about my YouTube channel, but I've told her about the dolls. She's actually helping me work on the drawings for the prototypes of them, and she's perfectly cool with all that stuff. She's even told me before, when other women were gonna rat me out to some other woman, she's like, "Be careful, that woman's gonna say this." And I'm like, "No, what happened to the old group preference? Like, what's going on here?" Right? Like, obviously, she's probably got her own ulterior motives, just like most women do. But I still found that different, and it's, for me, it's just having a conversation, having someone I can confide in, having a woman that will actually make me a better man without expecting so much more in return.
Qu'est-ce que t'essaies de faire?
Well, that's a good point.
Faire fonctionner un skill.
Quel skill?
Spell Slinger.
Je sais même pas c'est quoi.
C'est ça. Je comprends. Attends, je vais aller checker sur internet là.
Je suis en train de clearer le hideout anyway.
Sandman is actually having a conversation can be valuable.
Well,
They
here's
can
the
bring a
problem,
perspective
is that
they can bring a perspective
Yeah.
in that men don't have.
Yes.
Well, let me interject here. Is that the relationship is now commodified, where it's no longer about meeting someone in the street or flirting or being courteous, what have you. It's now in the realm of money, where this is the problem with the rise of social media. Is that if you don't have anything in common with her, well, send me a few nudes and I'll throw you $10.
But maybe that's just your sexual relationship, but then you have an intellectual relationship with an entirely different woman, right? And so relationships are going to get chopped up into pieces like they have been in Japan and sold off in pieces. It's like they're going to sell the corpse off by chopping it up first and then selling it off. That's where we're headed.
I like your idea of having a conversation with women. Why not? Right? Why
but
not?
there are very few intelligent women out there. Like, for example,
in the West.
First, you brought in Karen Strawn into your documentary as well. And Karen Strawn is one of those very few intelligent women. Now, the thing about those intelligent women is they typically get guys that are way higher on the physical sexual marketplace value than they are. So Karen Strawn married a guy, I think he's like 10 or 15 years younger, and she's a single mother, right, of 3 kids.
Jesus, are you serious?
Yes. That's a big one. I like that cousin I was telling you about. She got a guy who was like 5 years younger than her and like very attractive. And I'm just like, I questioned her about it. Like, I'm like, she's like, no, he was 5 years younger than me. I'm like, holy cow! I'm like, another woman I knew who was about 5 years older than me. She wanted to get together with me. She was Indian, and she ended up with a guy who's 15 years younger than her. Looks like Mike Tyson in his prime, with a beautiful face. He looks like a chiseled Nubian god, right? Like, and everyone's like, they got married. I'm like, you're in your 40s and he's in his 20s. Like, what is going on, right? Like, but she can bring that type of man to her because of the brain. So it's the sexual imbalance. It's not even the sexual marketplace value of the body, brain. So there are very few women like that. I would only say I've met a handful of them in my entire life. So anyway, I'm gonna pass it on.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I think, God, I mean, I think, and again, for younger guys, I think they're gonna not like the idea because I got spoiled. I think in Asia, in that time frame that I was there, I really did. I got spoiled.
You learn the life of an alpha, which is very nice. You are the Chad.
From the standpoint,
your status goes up.
From the standpoint of the incel community, MGTOWs were spoiled, and from the status of the incel community, MRAs were like gods with regards to access to sexuality. So now we got to go further and we got to start moving forward. Like, what's happening next? What's besides, like, first, what do you see like in the next couple years? Like, how's the dating market at this very moment, right now? I don't know if you've been dating recently or if you know people who have in the last 6 months to a year. Like, what's the experience? What's going on out there?
Don't ask me. Ask.
That's I asked first. Yeah.
It's a desert.
First,
It's barren.
First, you there?
we lose him.
Oh, he fell out.
He says
He's
1
gone.
sec. Mike got unplugged. 1 sec. His stream
Okay.
is
Well,
still
it's like the
streaming,
Wild
so
West. I am read statistics that the sex inequality of the United States is equivalent to the economy of Haiti. The inequality of Haiti.
Bon,
it's one thing to bring up statistics.
T'as
It's
fini
like
la
another
quest,
thing
toi,
to
hein?
bring up
Moi, je l'ai pas
personal
fini.
Des busts,
stories,
ouais.
Because again, my personal stories end 5 years ago when I got thoroughly disgusted at what was going on. Like,
Right.
thoroughly disgusted. I was like, well, holy cow! Like,
Ah,
I
moi, je sais
can't
comment ça
do
marche.
the same
J'avais
thing
trop de
without
mana
being
reserve
constantly
de fait que je peux
criticized and constantly
l'activer.
like having
Ah.
everything combed over to make sure that I'm being politically correct at all times, or or like they're blatantly trying to use you and like they're just smiling at it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna deal with this shit.
Vraiment que je prends toutes les
No.
rares pour les
Right? And then I was done. I got that second red pill raid, and I was out. So
Well, now wait. Let me ask you. Now that the incel dropped out, I
Il était où le
actually
dernier
believe that
boss?
incel
Ouais,
is a bit
ok,
of a
laisse faire.
mainstream media psyop.
why would it be a psyop?
Well, we saw the graphs, how MGTOW is now crescending downwards while you see these massive gyrations and spikes with Google Trends. So obviously, mainstream media, New York Times, are writing articles about this and spilling over into social media, and it's sucking the rest of the manosphere into it. I mean, I don't want to be associated with incels.
But-
you mentioned the word incel, it kind of gets lumped in with terrorism and stuff.
But we're talking about the same stuff that happened 8, 9, 10 years ago. It was like MGTOW. It's like Gamma Ray's like, we don't want to be associated with MGTOW. We're the men's rights movement. We bring in women and we're working together. These MGTOW people, they're
Faut que je me trouve
extreme
un autre
MRAs, right?
3,
And so
les
now it's the
MGTOW
same thing again.
But MGTOW never
3 ou 4 lignes.
committed
Le
a mass
waypoint
shooting.
est ici.
Ouais, je sais, je suis juste à côté de
Like,
toi.
that's my.
Ah oui, c'est vrai,
that's
lui,
it.
il tape en
That's
est.
Lampert.
But if you go back to what was going on,
Pas tant.
if you go back to what was happening
tape
before,
en
these
est.
guys were
Catacombs, c'est une
these
side
extremists,
quest.
right? Like we were being
done,
But not
targeted.
in the mass media.
A few years ago we were. Look what
Ouais.
happened with the
Ah, je pense qu'en
CNN
fait, il y a
thing,
un,
and
ouais, c'est
look-
ça, il y a un
Name,
trial of
name
ascendancy
one
ici.
mainstream article where the moniker MGTOW
Hey, quand ils ont ajouté ça, man, ça a dû tellement être genre
any kind of extreme violence.
un game changer. Là.
Les Ascendancy, ouais, en
Ouais.
effet.
And in fact, MRA.
Ça a rendu le jeu un petit peu moins plate. Puis un petit peu plus
Hold on.
class based.
the
Ouais.
stream ended. For,
Parce qu'avant, c'était genre, voici le meilleur build, à quelle classe tu prends pour te rendre à ce meilleur build-là.
He said his mic went dead, so I don't know what's going on. But anyway, we're
Et ce qui est
talking
le fun,
about
c'est que tu peux
the-
faire. Mettons, justement, je m'étais commencé un Cyclone Slayer.
There was never. And this is
Du,
one of the reasons why I always
dueliste.
found MGTOW fascinating.
Puis j'ai juste
Over the
changé
years,
pour le champion, puis genre,
what has
juste
gone
dit que j'étais plus tanky.
Is that the MRA
Slayer, c'était vraiment fort parce que c'était plus
all
des gars,
the
mais
mainstream media.
champion,
I
c'était
mean,
vraiment un bon.
look at the fucking
bonne ascendancy
documentary,
pour ça. Là.
Red
Bon,
Pill documentary, and everything that happened.
moi
to
j'étais
them.
rendu.
Not once in that bullshit was MGTOW ever mentioned. Not once.
At the very end, they mentioned.
Hey, can
it.
you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Okay,
you
there
now.
it is.
Perfect.
Now you
Okay.
There is nothing
What happened?
eternal
Sorry about
in
that.
this
I don't know,
empire
it's Skype. Skype is just
but the
garbage
name
for
of our
working with
day
OBS.
that shall be
Yeah,
revered or reviled.
We're
in the
old. We
centuries
like
to
using
come.
Skype.
Fait que si tu spots un 3
the
lignes
old
bleues,
guys.
tu me dis. Peu importe, à part
Everybody
un
now
chest.
is on. What do
Okay.
you call it?
Zoom.
Puis un arme, I guess.
No.
Ben, non,
Discord.
un arme, un
Oh,
shield ou
okay,
un arme aussi.
Yeah, I mean, Skype just does not work
Or-
with
C'est un 4 lignes?
OBS. It's really weird. Like, if somehow
Four
the
link.
audio gets knocked out, you start OBS.
Huge,
and
Mr.
It's
Chest.
okay, but go on. I mean, you were talking
Bah,
about.
je le veux si tu le veux pas.
Kind of like the piecing
Ben,
together
c'est genre multicolore,
the
là,
big
c'est pas
data
super
and
bon, là,
anecdotal
mais
data.
juste pour que ce soit un 4
No,
lignes, c'est bon.
I would. Right as you came back, we were talking a little bit about how Incel, the name, the objective concept of Incel, has been
Non, tu vas aller ici.
blacklisted by the media in the past, and it has. Mass shooters in Toronto, for
Ah, il y
example.
a un nice, il y a un crafting aussi.
Even the
Crafting,
MRA.
shit.
when we and I was giving the
Ça rend ça
example of the
facile
Red
avec
Pill
les,
documentary,
When I'm ready.
and even
dash
before and after,
magique. Wow!
the MRA blacklisted by the mainstream media, but never once, and no one can give an
J'ai
example
quand même hâte d'avoir mon
of
acidity parce que ça va me
the
permettre
moniker
d'avoir genre de l'infini flasque.
MGTOW
Elle va se régénérer
blacklisted
tout seul.
by the mainstream media
C'est juste ça qu'il y avait hein, dans les catacombes, il n'y a pas de quest. Hein.
Non,
mass
pas que je
killers.
sache.
TP.
It's on the
Never
SPLC's website.
Yeah,
Back.
on the very edges of.
Mais de toute
hate
façon,
or
le
something
chess,
like
il a
that, I can't
besoin
remember
de
what they said.
4. Il a besoin de 73 de
Well,
dex.
let me interject here. The acronym itself
C'est quand même
invokes
lourd.
the thoughts of
54,
ISIS,
puis je pourrais
and
l'avoir
as
facilement.
Incel comes at the heels of a time where single poor young men in the Middle East were waging sloppy jihad. Then we have the term cell as a parasite or something secretive. These ideas alone should send up signal flares that something is a little bit dicey.
Ok, attends une minute, je vais essayer de le changer dans
Okay,
Exactly.
but
J'ai un.
okay, before we got cut off,
Ah,
my
c'est pas bon.
question
3 verts,
first
1 bleu.
was, do you know guys that
Tu
are
veux-tu
dating in
pareil?
the last 6 months to a year?
Non.
What are their experiences? What the hell is going on? And how has
Ça
it
va juste me
changed even the
donner
last
un-
2 or 3 years? Like, what has happened?
Une affaire, c'est pas grave.
Yeah, let me just I'm trying to get back to YouTube streaming right here for a sec. It says we're
Ah, il y a
live
une
again.
3
I'm
lignes
not sure.
bleues de wand. Je pense que je vais la
Let
pogner.
me just
We're doing good. We got time.
Ah, mais.
People are listening. But
Non, c'est con, c'est
Sandman, your
pas.
question is a good
Ça sert à
question,
rien en fait.
and you're right.
T'as
As
vu-tu?
soon as you
Wait,
ask-
no. I'm
Non,
not
merci.
letting go of this the
Ben, je
ISIS
peux la rendre
Incel
rare,
connection
si tu veux.
here, because I've been studying this
Ah,
like crazy,
16%
and
de spell damage
it's a little bit
d'implicit.
worrisome with the whole incel
La
sphere,
mienne est
and,
à
you know, this
21 en ce moment, puis
self-loathing
ma deuxième
bullshit
est
that
à... Oh,
goes
juste
on,
9, ouais, je veux.
curry cells, and
Ok, je te la mets
again,
en.
all
Je vais
these
utiliser un
cells,
alchemy
Chad,
orb.
Stacy, they come out of
Ah,
the
c'est fin.
incel
Très bon.
sphere.
Très
Right?
bon,
And
man.
this is what
C'est
gave
excellent.
rise
Sais-tu?
to these
Toi, viens.
terminologies and stuff. I mean, you have your own wiki page, Incel Wiki or some shit. MGTOW never had that. Who's behind the creator of that? What's going on here? It seems like Incel has some type of infrastructure.
Elle a roulé 27% de spell damage.
Ce qui est excellent.
Exact.
Yeah, I don't think it's a psyop at all. But let me answer. I mean, at least locally, basically, that there is no dating market for most men now. It's just not inaccessible.
Là, il
Even
reste.
these
Les
chat
quelques
guys
qui
that I
restent là
know,
pour
I've
les
sent, like,
Ascendancy,
face
il nous
on
en reste juste un, non?
like a
Ouais,
chat guy, and this guy's having
dans
such trouble.
le
He was
gardien,
trying to
jardin.
move to different state to date
Ok.
there.
Ah
He
ouais,
actually met a
Claude
girl
Bord
who
d'ici,
wanted
en
to
fait.
take pictures with him.
Après ça,
This
un
is
autre
like a
zone après, puis on va pouvoir aller le faire.
bodybuilder.
à la Head
And they
Bunny
didn't want anything
Barracks.
to do with him after. They
On
just
sort
took
dans les
the
Bunny
picture.
Barracks,
How
puis on
old
sort dans le
is
jardin, puis ça on peut le
How old
faire.
is he?
He's 25. But he's so basically.
So what did he
Yeah,
say?
but
What did they say about
J'ai hâte
him?
d'avoir Spellslinger. C'est tellement drôle Spellslinger. En gros, c'est que tu fais juste caster ce Frenzy, ça casse 3 spells en même temps.
What was what you know? Are
No,
they?
this guy.
C'est comme un one button
That's how
wonder.
bad the
genre.
dating market is that woman.
Nice.
Even
Mais
these
au lieu
top
que ça
guys,
coûte de la mana, ça me réserve les spells que je caste. Réserve de la mana. Mais apparemment, c'est la meilleure façon de faire du early game damage. Genre, toutes les builds de speedrun, ils ont ça. là. C'est une quelconque forme de Spellslinger. Oh, nice! Une autre Spellslinger. J'ai gaspillé un J'ai gaspillé un Alteration Orb, sorry. Avoir su. Là, le doc, c'est encore avec l'autre. là.
Pourquoi on est au doc?
Je sais pas, là. Il y a un waypoint à.
On n'a pas besoin d'être au doc.
On peut juste aller pogner le waypoint puis. Ah, t'avais pas de waypoint hein pour la. On l'avait pas encore trouvé?
Non.
Shit. Ça sert vraiment à rien qu'est-ce qu'on fait en ce moment.
Tant qu'à être ici ou t'as pogné le waypoint, comme ça quand on va vouloir revenir, ça va pas chier.
Ah, on est tellement juste allé dans le mauvais sens au début du jeu.
We're not made to have
Classic.
many options because when we were in our infantile age of humanity, we were hunter-gatherers. What did you have to eat? You had like the caribou you murdered, and that's it. That's all you had for like a week straight. So that's what's going on. Is that a lot of this is driven
Pourquoi
like
tu
Steve Hogan
suis
calls
pas
it
sur Twitch
the
à
female
place?
dating limbos that.
Je veux rien savoir de Twitch.
Pourquoi?
Puis en plus de ça, une fois que j'ai streamé sur Twitch, mon vidéo est semi-partie. C'est très dur de monétiser sur Twitch, contrairement à YouTube. Faut que tu sois dans le Partner Program, puis Twitch est vraiment anti-mal. Il faut pas que t'aies jamais rien dit de mal, puis n'importe quand ils peuvent te ban ton compte vraiment plus que YouTube. Un point où Twitch est vraiment en train de se dépopuler. Beaucoup de gens qui étaient sur Twitch ont juste arrêté d'être sur Twitch parce que Twitch était trop de la merde avec eux autres. J'irais sur D-Live tant
What
que
do you
ça.
When I
I'm just talking about
Nice.
oversaturation.
That's
when I was
pretty big.
14, we
Fuck
used to
mon
go.
elemental
My
res.
parents
Putain, j'ai
and I
une
used to
bismuth
drive
flask
down to
si
Florida
t'as vu.
from
Oh, yeah.
Canada
J'ai
for
droppé.
the winter vacation. We ate McDonald's 3 times a day for 2 days. I just couldn't take any more McDonald's anymore, and I was 14 years old. The first
Colossal
couple
Ice
times
Flask,
was
t'es juste
fantastic, and
passé
then
à
after
côté.
that you're like, no.
Ah, niveau 30.
And that's how females are with male attention. They've gotten so much through social media and online dating. They're literally that's why they hate all men. That's why they're going away.
But I get the same experience when I go on Tinder. Like I just go on there to kind of see what's going on. And
Ah,
you know, a
j'aime
couple
tellement
days
ces
ago, my
moments-là
phone
où est-ce que
says,
tous
"You've
tes
got
gems sont au
matches
même
on
niveau.
Tinder." So I go on there and I
Genre,
see
ils level
swiping all
tout
day, I
up en
find
même temps,
matches,
t'es comme.
right? And I'm just looking at them and I'm
T'entends
like,
toutes les petits
"Do I
ding,
wanna
ding,
talk to
ding.
you?" No. And I just turn it off, right? Like,
Bon.
it's like-
That's how women act.
On
exactly.
peut même pas
That's
retourner
how
au
exactly- I
Battlefront.
mean, that's why nothing really happens on online dating. I mean,
So the-
Because they know they
J'ai
have
même
the
pas pris
option
le
at any
décanteur,
time.
moi.
They're not going to take any of the
Là.
options.
exactly.
Okay,
There's
so-
no
Attends.
there's
So that-
no
Urgency.
There's no like ticking clock. There's no yeah. You need to provide urgency, and there's no urgency for females. There used to be urgency. Like there
Yes.
used to be a wall.
Yes.
The wall doesn't exist
That's-
anymore.
If you
at
met
all.
the guy at a party on a weekend and he was going to
Exactly.
college and you don't know where if you're going to see him ever again, you're going to grab him and take him into the closet. Now it's
Now-
like the closet is in your pocket and you've got thousands of guys and you're like, what do I do? I can't do any of this.
That's my answer, Sandman, to what's going on here on the ground is that there is no dating.
Okay,
It's
so
gotten
women
bad.
are oversaturated. But
Big.
probably even some
Hell
of the higher
yeah,
end
man.
guys are
Dans le shop,
oversaturated because they get
four
like
link.
10, 20 matches and they're just like, fuck this shit. I don't want to. Because that's
Avec
one of the
3 bleus
reasons
dedans.
that
Puis un
besides
rouge, I
the
guess,
second
mais
red
rouge,
pill
pas grave,
wave
là.
stage that I called it. That was another reason why the online dating was like easier than
Juste
real
pour me
dating
trouver de
because
quoi que je
before
peux
you actually have to
linker
go
avec.
out and meet people. So for
Je
me,
vois
online
la
dating was a lot
upgrade
easier.
en-
And I'm not trying to piss any of the incels listening off. I'm just saying, for me, it was a lot
Whatever.
easier. So it took the challenge away, and so I got bored of it.
Nice, okay.
Right? So
Time.
so I'm guessing a lot of women are feeling the exact same way. So that's creating that's creating the drought for men who haven't had those options. So now you're getting
Well, I want to understand the oversaturation point you guys are making. Is the oversaturation more choices?
yes.
It's too many. It's good to have some choices, okay? It's good to have 3 choices, but when you take it to 1,000, like these women are, a lot of these
Did you
women
say-
have thousands of options.
Did you say they were 10? I remember in your documentary, it was either 10,000 or it was 1,000 choices, and women narrowed it down to 21 guys that they
That's
actually
what
went on
happens.
dates.
Yeah, that's what happens. We used to have this thing called 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
But the 80-20 rule has totally disappeared. It's like
He
if
said
you use online dating-
0.82%. And I
Exactly.
calculated. I was like, no. That's not 0.82. Like at 10,000 men, it was like 0.2%. I'm like, if I've got a 0.2% of going on a date, well, fuck that. I'm not going to bother trying.
Bon,
Forget
fait
that.
que, on va à
So
droite.
I think a lot of
Non, on va trouver le
a lot
waypoint,
of
puis il
incels
faut
get
tuer
so
le severed hand
frustrated
qui
to
est
the point
ici.
where they're just like, I'm not even gonna bother because it's like I've tried 1,000 times and everyone's like, you just gotta go try harder, and you're like, what? Like,
Ça veut dire qu'on
no.
va se pogner des 4 links bientôt. Là.
So that you got to help me understand because I'm an old guy, right?
How old are you now?
I'm 46.
Ah oui, il faut aller jusqu'au bout du
Yeah,
pont.
so it's like the dating market you experience is completely
De
it's
mémoire?
just It's a different planet.
C'est ça,
It's a
de-
different planet.
His dating market was even better than mine. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean now. I mean, I don't. I'm not even a part of it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Why should I care?
That's what happens at 46. I don't think I'm gonna make it to that age, but yeah, that's the thing is that's the problem, and that's what Thinking Ape talked about is that if you look at that's why we have a rift of MGTOW and incels is that there's 2
Oh,
different
quelqu'un qui s'est
realities.
rendu
It's
niveau
like, yeah,
70 déjà.
yeah, it's a whole, but the dating marketing has completely changed. It's a different like solar system now to the reality we're living. Is that it's just complete. I mean, we have
Ça va,
nothing
ouais.
now. We have no option. There is
Je suis
no.
pas mal
There's
sûr
no
que le
dating.
chemin à
There's no
prendre, c'est
dating
à droite.
at all going on for most men. Most men
Hate
cannot get
the
a
black
reply.
pill.
So then, what you're saying is, if this has happened in the last 5 to 10 years, let's just say since
It's
Tinder was
happened. Because I saw guys
10 years at least.
in 2017, guys were still trying to get something. I think 2019
before
is
social
2019.
Before social media.
Well, no,
What
before
happened-
Tinder saturated it, right?
Well, social media.
No, so
Here's
wait,
it gets
but
progressively worse. It doesn't happen immediately.
Okay, so
right?
explain it.
What happened? What happened in 2008? We had the iPhone and we had Facebook around that time too. Okay, that made it bad, but it wasn't
That
so
was
bad.
not
Again, you have a lag. You also have a lagging. You have a lagging effect where people adopt it over time. Not everyone joins
Yeah.
Facebook at the same time. So okay, then 2008, and then I think 2012. You know, they say the Mayans calendar ended. I think 2012 was the end of the world for single men. 2012 was the end of the world for men because that's Tinder and Instagram, the two
Yep.
most hypergamous apps you can ever have. And ever since then, look at it now. We've gotten worse. Like people thought, I can't imagine it getting worse than Tinder and Instagram. Look at TikTok now. TikTok literally is the epitome of apex bias. The woman now. I see Zoomer like females and males like they have a birthday party. They stream it on TikTok or whatever, and they choose like one
ça, là,
boy
c'est un
from their
peu que j'ai
classroom.
trouvé.
It's all these girls, and they just
Yes,
go,
look funny.
they all invite just one boy, the cutest or whatever boy from their classroom.
Oh, un
Wow.
smoothie
To that event.
cash.
So
I'd
that's
love
how
to see the
hyper. That's
Il y en a
how
pas à toutes les
religious
zones,
get
je
is that
pense.
Okay,
Je
Yeah.
sais pas quand il y en a,
okay,
puis quand il y en a pas, honnêtement.
I like where this is going. So you're mapping it out. So 20, 20
Ooh, Chaos Orb,
Tinder
that's
shows
big.
up.
Oh, you
What's
fuck.
the next progression after that? What happened next?
Next progression, I'd
You fucking
say,
piece of
is
shit.
Instagram shoots up. I mean, we get Snapchat, we get all this type of stuff. We get Twitter, of course. And
So
Twitter-
social media 2.0, basically.
Yeah,
Ah,
social,
c'est
social
forwarding
media
capable.
it advanced, and it, you know, first it started out, it kind of started localized. You add your friends, you add this, but now with TikTok, when you log on to TikTok, when a woman logs on to TikTok, she's just you and the top 3 men, the top funniest guys or whatever, which are usually the Chads too. So, women are exposed to only like a certain amount of men. The screen time they have is all you and all these Chad guys or these top guys. So that's who. So when they think of the average guy, that becomes the average.
Well,
That's
no,
why
no,
I'm
it's just like we were talking about with accessibility. So the male ideal is accessibility, and so for women, their male ideal is now accessibility of the men that they see online, right? And so that's changing that. So okay, so that happened. So their ideal changed with Instagram and TikTok. Okay, so what happened next? So that, let's say, when was that roughly? It's like 2012 to say 2015.
No, TikTok came later. I think it came like in 2018, 2019. That's
Okay.
when, I mean, and now COVID has
Ooh,
just
Joel.
completely decimated the dating market because it's taken out
That
the
can be
dating, the
good,
normie
yeah.
guys that could go on a date you could ask out a woman in your social circle to go out on a coffee. That's gone now. So you basically you're either a chat online, and I mean most you know. Basically, the way of the social circle is disappearing in front of men's eyes, and that's why you go on normie Reddits or like r/dating or r/dating over 30. I like that one a lot to see how that's going, and you see a lot of men breaking down.
Let me say something here. The guy next door is boring. She hates you. Okay, even though you have something in common with her, you went to the same school, you went to the same rock concerts, whatever it might be, you know, smoked blunts or some shit. She hates you now because you're ordinary, and you remind her of her past, in which she gets reminded that she's in fact ordinary. She doesn't like that, and she keeps chasing these guys on TikTok and shit.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's just say Instagram it changed that, made it basically change the female ideal. So then what did TikTok do specifically?
TikTok was the epitome of apex policy. It made this like the cone of vision even more slimmer to the top people, the top like especially for women, they just see the top guys on there because again it's like YouTube. Most of the watch time is going to these big guys like
Yeah.
PewDiePie or whatever. It's not going to these small channels, and that's how it goes on TikTok. So before social media, a woman was exposed to a large pool of men, and
Yeah.
she could say there's average guys, and now she's only exposed to the top guys of TikTok, the top guys of social media. So that's why women are all asking like over 6'2", over 6 foot, over whatever, because even though that's not the average height, they're asking for like the top quartile because that's what average to them. That's the
Because that's
thing,
all they
why-
see. That's all
Exactly.
they see. Yeah.
So it's just getting progressively worse and worse. And I think COVID-19 was just the final shot because as soon as the lockdowns happened, that was the end of the
So-
global dating.
So
market.
even the women who were going out and avoiding their phones were now picking them up because
Oh,
that was
j'ai
their
le
only
waypoint ici.
accessibility at that point.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of women, they feel lonely. So where do they go? Where they go where they can cure their loneliness and get tons of guys messaging them at once. So it's just, but I think
Why do these women feel so lonely?
When I'm ready, And not before.
Because they need attention.
Everything's shut down. I mean, the whole economy runs on female spending. I mean, it runs on coffee shops, these nice boutiques. These look at your downtown. Look how it's structured. It's structured for only couples
The
or female
cockroaches will come
venues.
again.
So
They
you know,
want the
females are the
twist.
social. You know, they're
That
the social
cockroach
class.
emperor.
Men are just
The
kind of
other
like
bugs
left
shout,
aside.
"Talk again,
Fuck
sir."
You know,
Christian
they have fun going to clubs and rejecting a bunch of guys. They have fun getting that attention,
So-
going
so
to a
these
club,
women-
going for them.
So these women, because they can't go to clubs anymore, they can't socialize, they feel lonely, and then their outlet is these apps you're talking about.
Yeah, because there was a study too that came out recently said that, of course, they ignore the boys. They said, oh, young teen girls are in trouble because, you know, they're lonely as ever, and you know that's a crisis. And it's funny how they don't care about
What do you
teen
want?
boys, but teen girls. There was a
Believe
big
me,
article. They
not
said
a
40
cockroach.
loneliness in teen girls is like 40% up. Oh my goodness! And how are they going to alleviate that? They're gonna go discover their SMB. A woman doesn't discover her full SMB until she's like fully online and she gets those options. You know, that's why.
Yeah,
in high
and what age is that? Like fucking 12
Yeah.
nowadays?
Yeah.
Now, there's something else. You brought up the idea of society being structured for women and their consumption and, you know, their behavioral patterns.
Bigfoot survient
There's
pour
actually
poigner
somebody
la
sent
feuille
me a
à la
request,
dust.
and he
Là,
pointed out a book that came out
Surviennent,
in
au
like the
dock pour poigner la
1880s,
dust.
1889, by Tolstoy. I can't remember the exact title.
La
And the
quest
book
Fiery
is
Dust.
full of
Alright.
red and black pills. Like, it's insane. And it's
On puisse
1889.
passer
And this book was so
au Ebony
controversial
Barracks.
that the United States banned it, even with the First Amendment, right? Like, Teddy Roosevelt banned the book, and he called him a depraved, like, sexual, like, he was going to bring about the end of society because he was pointing out how everything in our society was designed for women's consumption, and in the book, the protagonist finds his wife cheating on him. It's called the Kreutzer Sonata. That's what the book is called. He finds his wife cheating on him, and he comes back from a business trip. He ends up killing her, and so everyone freaks out because he ends up killing his own wife for cheating on him, right? And they thought this is like the most heinous thing you could imagine, you could possibly do, because, you know, it's always promoted that the guy kills the guy that the wife cheated on. They never actually talk about the guy going after the
Killing
wife.
the woman.
Yeah, because that's like the taboo, right? Like, you can't kill the woman for cheating. So, and you know, and if that was promoted, that idea was promoted, that other guys might do it too. So,
Might-
right? This is how women think, right? Like, this is the fear. So they literally got the book banned, and it was in Pennsylvania and New York that actually overturned the ban. We're talking.
Please post
Fuck
the
off,
title
don't
of
bet
that
on
book
nonsense.
in our
Fuck
Skype
shit.
chat later so that I can
more-
find it.
It's in the video
Yeah.
I put together
Oh,
called
vous êtes marre.
Russia Bans MGTOW, and they literally,
Okay.
because they banned this book at that time, and the book is, you can get a free link to it in that video when it comes out. By this point, if I've released it on my channel, that video will be already up, so people can go and read the Kreutzer Sonata. And I've actually taken some of the main quotes out of it and, like, put it into the video. It was
Wonderful.
eye-opening, because it's like the guy who created the national park system, who we put on Mount Rushmore. You know, like, he was a great
Oh,
president,
Valeria.
but he was trying to ban books. Like, come on, like, ban books
Rentre
because
dedans, moi, je trouve ça
he didn't like the
I
book
no
being
longer
said.
need fear.
Je pense pas.
Let's
On
be
peut essayer.
honest. Why did he ban?
Well, because he was trying to win over women's votes that didn't
Ouais, je
have
peux
them yet.
Yes, on va peut-être avoir un valeur, puis je vais pouvoir
Oh my
corrupt.
god, that's incredible.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, women didn't vote at the time, so you know, you got my point there, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But it so obviously didn't have to do with
No, it had nothing to do with votes. It had to do with male, like, what men found offensive and what they didn't find offensive. Men wanted to
Tu pognes
protect
toutes les
women.
bonnes orbes.
Men were such big blue pill simps at that time.
Genre, tu drops toutes les bonnes orbes.
They were working against
Yeah,
their
je
own
me suis
interests
mis plein de
even
Magic
when they
Find.
were the patriarchs, supposedly. Right? Like, this is just, I don't know.
Oh!
You'll have to,
Oh,
you'll have
Vanity
to watch
Sig-
it or read the book and you'll find
Fucking
out.
I'll
excellent.
watch and read the book.
Well, it's not a long read. It's like 100 pages long.
Pour
so
une
it's,
tabula
Yeah,
rasa.
but that's the issue we're
Tabulas.
facing now, is that
C'est quoi un
in
tabula?
society, it's
Oui,
like,
c'est le 6 blanc.
especially with this incel
Ouais.
crisis going on, it's like you can now
Qui
more
est
than
excellent
ever,
pour
it
leveler.
seems that guys
Et peut
are
même commencer tes maps.
valuing relationships more than ever because it's becoming rare. If It's like why is gold?
So the
why
blue
is gold-
pill is becoming even worse. Oh.
Yes, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing two. I mean, that's polarization, right?
much
We're seeing
clutter.
extreme. We're seeing extreme black pill and extreme blue pill because a lot of guys are gonna do anything now to hang on to a
c'est
relationship.
où,
They're
là,
gonna be
le
open to
maudit,
open relationship. They're gonna be open
Oh,
to
le-
just.
That's
Just
why.
like-
Ok, faut qu'on retourne
Well,
sur la
one thing I noticed that
Il
you
faut qu'on
didn't
retourne au.
mention
Voyons.
in your rant there was the red pill. You never mentioned
Sewer,
the
c'est ça.
red pill.
Who?
T'as raison. Sewers.
Only black pill.
Ouais, faut qu'on
Yeah,
retourne
he
sur la reste
mentioned
temporaire.
black and blue. He never
So how would you
mentioned red.
define?
Okay,
How
vamos
would
a
you
ver sewers.
define the difference between the red pill and the black pill?
Well, you know what? I haven't put a lot of thought into it, honestly. However, when I did have my talk with Andy Nowicki a few days back, he, in some of his videos, he despises the black pill. I mean, I honestly I don't have that much of an opinion on it, but he despises
No,
it
I've been
because he
embarrassed.
calls it
Big, big.
despair.
I don't think it's despair. It depends how you can overdose on the black pill, but there's ways to take it. I think it saves a lot of men.
Qu'est-ce que tu
It's
veux,
like they know now. They know the truth. If a lot of despair
Je
is
sais
going to
pas.
clubs, going on online dating, spending money, doing this, going on first dates that lead to nowhere. That's a lot of stress to a man. I mean,
But that, a lot
dating
of that
is-
overlaps with
It's a
MGTOW as well, right? Like some things here. That's why I think it's kind of like.
But MGTOW is you're going your own way. Black pill's like I've been sent my own way.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's like it's like somebody shoved the black pill down your throat. Versus
Well, I
with
mean,
the
there's a lot of
with
rules.
the red
Here's
pill,
the
you
thing,
got to pick
the
between the
difference-
red and the blue. But then with the black, they just open your mouth and throw it down. Right? That's
I mean, what happened? How did the red pill, blue pill originate? It originated from
The
Matrix.
Matrix,
And
yeah.
what
You
happened is Neo took the red pill, and he noticed that he can manipulate his powers, and that's what the red pill is.
Alright,
It's like
okay,
you take the red
nice.
pill, and what does the
Believe
red
me,
pill
not
summarize?
a
The largest
cockroach.
portion of the red pill community is on there, and it says you can manipulate female nature. You can manipulate the way you act to attract a female. The black pill says no, it's
No,
fatalistic.
that sounds like
You-
PUA to me.
that's more
Well,
PUA.
yeah,
Okay.
But
exactly.
again,
That-
a lot
that
of these
red
things
pill sounds like
overlap. A
PUA.
lot of these things overlap. I think it's you can't kind of define boundaries with this. But I mean, for the most black pill, there's a guy on
Je
MGTOW
suis au
TV,
Ebony Barracks.
and he's the
Yeah,
black
merci.
pill, and then there's also Devin Stack at black pilled on.
Yeah.
So again, how do you define black pill? Because I've seen it in so many
Alright.
ways, and just like the red pill was defined by the MRA, the red pill was defined by MGTOW. So I think there's
Black
many
pill, I
different
think, is
many different
it's just-
versions of it. So what's the incel version of black pill? I think that's
It means
On va
it's
tu
basically
dirais qu'à
over. It
Imperial
never
Garden?
began for you as a male.
On a un
As
dude
when
là-dessus
you-
ici
when
qui ferait
you
peine de
aged
tuer.
up, you're not gonna get that girlfriend. You're not gonna get that first kiss.
General
monogamous, out of monogamous,
Gravicius.
You're not gonna get a wife. That is.
Ouais,
that-
je sais
that's-
où l'entrée du Imperial
that's the-
Garden.
No, that's the reality of it. But that's you're just taking. I mean, you're taking off the rose tinted glasses and you're looking reality because that is objective reality. It's
It's one of the 5 stages of like acceptance. You know,
Exactly.
like, with my
everyone.
eye,
Yeah,
hands,
you
dog,
take this new pill and your body gets adjusted to it, just like any medication. And
But
that's what's going on.
I heard the same
Well,
argument of
listen,
despair.
Black pill is not the last of the stages, and that's why the difference between black pill and red pill is.
Well, if
Look,
it's not the last,
I
it's
think,
the next.
like I said, there's so much overlap, and I mean the same stuff I hear about despair in the Incel community was the same stuff I heard about. The MGTOWs, they're just full of despair. I heard this like 7-8 years ago. Like it was the same stuff. So I think it's just the same ideas repeating, but rhyming and with more intensity because of the situation and the world changing.
With
Or the echo
Rick
chambers,
Rader-
or the echo chambers, Sandman.
what?
Escape un chromatic orb.
Or Incel
Oh,
and MGTOW
oops.
echo chambers of each other.
No. They're the most balanced things because even in Black Pill we always have debates. We have Nania Basness versus Face LMS, social circle versus looks. We're constantly evolving.
Hey,
We're
on est
not-
rendu à 5 viewers.
We're
Sweet.
constantly critiquing each other. We're checking our work. We're
Yeah.
actually one of the most we're the least echo chamber compared to the left and the
Well,
conservatives that
MGTOW
are
is
echo
the same
chamber.
thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
So-
manosphere. I mean, that's I guess that's the male way of doing things. It's having. It's called Hegelian dialectics. We have
Yeah.
the antithesis and the
Thesis and
thesis
antithesis,
and
yeah.
antithesis. And then what do we get? We get the synthesis, and that's what's going on in the Black Pill. We're having the looks-based approach, and then we're having the kind of like the social circle, kind of social maxing status approach. Yeah, so that's our synthesis.
What
So
about
we're
is there
having
like a
Hegelian dialectics.
is there another
Alright, so
approach
then
when it
what-
comes to wealth and showing off status and that kind of
Yes,
stuff?
yes, that's also a factor. You know, you have these
So then-
things cycling.
I'm sorry, what's a TFL and what's a POA in your eyes?
TFL it's basically
la
created by
library,
Bill
faut que je
Greathouse
fasse.
and Steve Hoka. It was like a pre-insult term. It just
On va voir
means
toutes les skills.
it's more on the bullying.
C'est bon pour toi aussi. Tu
It
peux avoir
doesn't focus.
ça,
It's a similar thing as
skills à ma
incel.
place. On la fera
It's a
après le
different
trial.
spin on it.
Qui est
It's
juste-
a more, I guess, nuanced
après, on ira
way
faire
of
notre
looking at it.
trial.
I don't typically follow that. I'm part of the incel crowd and the black pill crowd, but that's what it is. It's just
And
it's more.
Can TFL be equated to the grass eaters of Japan, which kind of came out at the same time?
Yeah, I think Japan. That's what I think of future. I talked about this a lot. That I included a clip from
Okay,
Japan
faudrait
in my
juste qu'on trouve
documentary. I don't know if you saw that, Sam. There's a
Yeah.
Japanese woman.
Au
And
centre
I
de la
watched,
route.
I watched the
Yeah.
original Japanese documentary with her. Yeah.
You saw that, and I think Japan was it's really a marker for the future because they're more urbanized, they're more kind of technologically advanced than the West, and
Ok,
you
ça,
see what
c'est l'entrée qu'on
because
peut pas
the
encore
first
accéder.
incels came out of Japan. That's when we
Yes.
started.
Il va y avoir le
The
chat.
economy
The
in
late
the 1990s,
80s,
in the 1990s, the highest per capita GDP was in Japan. So they had kind of like the Chinese rise, and then they fell into a perpetual kind of
Et voilà.
recession they haven't come out after. So ever since then, they experienced
Faut
with the
juste
men
trouver
dropping
l'arme,
out,
là.
the men becoming grass eaters, hikikomori needs, that all came from Japan. And they're like 5 to 10 years ahead of us. And what do we see now in the documentary? You saw a woman. What does she say? She says, "Hey, the way to get out of this is polygyny or polygyny or polygamy." That's what she said. And the
Qu'est-ce que tu fais?
British
T'es
reporter
parti?
was
On
like,
n'a pas encore fait
"Whoa!"
l'objectif
He
qu'il y
was
avait
like,
ici.
he was blown away. But this is what society that's 5 years, 10 years
Je te ferai un
faster
TP
on
où est-ce
the,
que
in the
c'est.
cycle, and that's what you're seeing. The incel crisis actually in Japan. Whenever Valentine's Day rolls around, there's a group of incels that go to protest.
Shit,
They call it Bloody Valentine's Day. That's how they're already so organized. They already have
Wow.
protests. You'll never see that in the West. But that's another
Well,
thing, Sandman.
What's it
there a
called?
lot of,
Can you? What's it? Bloody Valentine? What?
Bloody Valentine protest. Yeah.
And this is true for herbivore men. What do they
Well,
do?
it's
bad.
it's just a Japanese incels. We can call them whatever we want. It's a binary term. They're you're incel or you're not. In Japan, there's a bunch of incels. There's some of them called hikikomori, herbivore, whatever.
There's
and,
many. It's different,
Ball
different
lightning
grades,
est là.
I guess. You
But
could say.
basically, at the end of the day, it is an incel
Big,
objectively. It's an
big,
involuntary
big,
celibate
big,
man. You know, a man who can get a woman, and he's
Okay,
dropping
time
out of society, and that's
Well,
what we're seeing in Japan.
Now
We're
you've
seeing-
kind of explained this because everything accelerates in Japan. Now you kind of
Mais j'ai
explain
toujours pas
why
mon
the camera
3 lignes, c'est
culture
ça qui est poche.
most
C'est pas
likely because the narcissism would have risen first there.
Yeah, like all the, I don't know if it's Kodak or Nike,
Well,
all
it's-
these cameras.
those are American. It's Canon and it's Nikon.
Lakota.
Those, and
Évidemment, moi,
Fuji.
je peux
Those
pas
are the
l'avoir,
like the big
Yeah,
Fujifilm
exactly.
took
So-
over Kodak at some point in the
rien de
90s,
bon.
early 2000s. They
I
became the
think-
biggest
I
film
think
company.
Japan is perfect. We've seen, you guys all know about the MGTOW experiment,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And look how Japan's structured. Like Tokyo is a city with many cities, but if you look at it outside and you look at the Mouse Utopia, what's the closest thing to the Mouse Utopia we have? It's Tokyo. It was all its prefectures.
I've actually studied the behavioral sync in depth, and
Ah.
Tokyo's population is 40% of
Il
Japan,
est pas là. Où
and
ça,
in
il est
South
là?
Korea it's 60%. And we see this urbanization around the world, but COVID's definitely put a gear jammer to things
Yeah.
in the West.
In
so
urban
Il est pas là, Big.
really, really
Moi, je
changes the
l'ai,
ballgame here. This is a little bit of a black
Où ça?
swan moment.
Je l'avais en voyons.
Well, right now in Toronto, the
Quest
downtown
Reward.
core is
De
like,
laquelle
because all the
quest?
jobs are
Celle qu'on
basically
vient de faire.
laptop jobs.
Non, je
people
l'ai pas
working
faite,
in
moi,
banks,
encore.
people
C'est
work
ça.
from home. So all the
C'est-
restaurants and boutiques downtown.
trouvé
and
le-
we have an underground mall system, the biggest in the world, and
Le.
it's all shut down.
Dans
And,
Swig
and
of
almost,
Hope.
like a huge chunk of that business, maybe
The
50,
Javelin
60%,
Queen,
is never
she's
gone.
Non.
But the bigger thing is, if
J'ai
you
juste
look
été
around the town,
parler à
also
Hagran,
another
puis
200,
il y avait une
400
quest
buildings.
reward, puis
and they're all
C'est quoi la
like
quest?
high rise 30, 40, 50
je me
story.
rappelle plus
And
c'était
now
quoi
the
la quest, mais
property
c'est
values-
pas Swing of Hope, je l'ai pas
the property
compris.
values are going to go down
Okay,
because
mais
people
c'est-
are not
the
going
fuck?
if they're not working downtown, they're not going to just sit in their cage that's just a tiny
C'est
little
dans-
room and they can't leave for most of the day. So
Mais non, mais moi,
our
j'ai juste
government
deux
here
quoi,
has
j'ai
done some
Piety
insane
Spelt,
things. Like they're saying in the
Piety
US, like the
Spelt,
money
puis,
printing's out of
Swig of
control.
Hope.
They doubled.
Yeah.
Yep,
No, Canada went.
Moi, j'ai
we
même
went
plus le Swig of
5
Hope, en
times
fait.
Our money supply.
je l'ai,
from
mais.
COVID.
Non, je l'ai.
US
Piety Spelt,
doubled their
Swig
money.
of Hope.
We went 5
The fuck,
times.
c'est-
We're not allowing our real
C'était
estate
fait
market
depuis
to
comment,
correct.
voyons donc.
We're just like, no, it's
Yeah,
not going to go
Canada
down.
never had its 2008 moment
No.
like we had in
But we're
America.
we're flooding the market more, and now interest rates here. I've seen some teaser rates now being offered at like 1.5, 1.6%.
Yeah, we'll get to negative rates.
And
This case.
if they
Just
raise
control
if they
inflation.
raise interest rates by another 1%, the Canadian government will be bankrupt. So they can't. They're going to go negative, and that just means that houses are just going to keep going up. This is just insanity.
It'll make the US dollar stronger too.
It will, because everyone's
J'ai
going
pas
to
fait.
be required to pay their debts back in US dollars across the
Well,
world.
it's going to destroy your dating market too, because
Yeah.
I mean, guys are going to be able to get a house. That's what Canada's basically
Je
becoming
comprends
a
que j'ai pas
colony
fait,
for like the East rich
Yeah.
people. That they go there.
J'aurais
they buy
tendance
the
à dire
East,
être bon,
corrupt
mais
money,
bon,
they go there to
qu'est-ce
buy-
que
the
ça
same
l'aide,
thing's
hein?
happening here
That's
on the
why.
coast.
That's why I said. That's why I said.
The Vancouver model.
That's why I said I'm going to spend half my year in Belgrade for 6 months, where there's an apartment sitting there paid off that I can spend about $150 a month to maintain. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other half of the year I'm going to
connection,
spend
on va
in
mettre
a
là.
like a seniors during the summer and spring months. I'm going to spend during like in
Puis moi, je
like a
veux
trailer park with a fifth wheel or a tiny home or a tiny home community.
2 minutes.
And that way I don't have to be part of this
Filter like
insane
moments.
housing market. It's insane. Like, so,
Ouais,
you know,
level 60.
park my money in crypto and gold and
Ok,
you
parce
know,
que
just wait it out, because this is not gonna end well. 10, 50, who knows when it's gonna end? I don't know, but I know it's not gonna end well. So, and that's gonna really depress the dating market. You think what's happened up to now is bad? Wait until
Ah, ok, il y a
Dating
pas encore
market's
ça.
basically it's just it's so
It's
unhinged,
gonna
it's so
be
crazy.
so
There is no dating market for
so-
most men now, and I think
Ah non,
Japan, that
ça,
documentary
lui,
you
il y
saw,
a besoin de
Sandman, you
personnes.
saw what
Yeah.
men are doing. The salary men, they're going into clubs,
Yeah.
like they're going into eatery, and they pay money up front
The
just
host.
to have a board game with women. Just the hostess model.
No, but
I
no,
think
but
that's
the-
what-
but you
that's
get
what
you
we're
saw
gonna
the,
see
the
here.
four
Je
the
prends un
four,
gros risque.
the four women who pay the one male host to come in and entertain them, right?
Et le risque
So,
payoff.
so
Ok,
that's what I'm saying. That's why I think putting
Cinq
dolls
que
out
j'avais
for
avant.
women would make more
D'avoir
sense,
quatre
because they
mille,
would all
je sais pas.
vie to pay for the guy who would be, you know, the most attractive, that could be projected and they could talk to and that they can interact with. And
Well, what you were saying, Sandman.
because it's not just
where's
sex,
Japan?
it's the relationship that they can have with that person being disembodied and put in their room or the bedroom as a human and a robot, right?
Well,
It's-
Japan, like Japan's an interesting case. Back in the '90s, they already had these things where you go into like a cafe and you pick up a phone, and on the other line there's like a female, and like that was already back in the '90s happening in the early 2000s.
But you see that-
So
but
they
they've-
are the model for the future.
But they
for
commodify
urbanized cities.
they commodify every aspect of
m'enlève
human
ces
interactivity.
deux
So
affaires-là.
you
Yeah.
pay for your sex from one person, you pay for your cuddling from another person, you pay for your conversation over the phone for yet another
It's all
person.
monetized.
Yes,
There's no
yes.
intangible anymore. The intangible is dead, and that's why they
Well-
want to tear down the
well,
churches,
Sandman-
tear down statues and stuff like that.
Yeah,
They
well,
don't want
Sandman,
you
look-
to
look
have
at what-
anything like the culture.
Look at how the family structure has changed. We used to have extended families, large families living together, 3 generations under one roof. Then we went to nuclear families, which was smaller families. Now we're atomized individuals in the West.
Yeah.
And what happens? You get a lot more individualist consumers, atomized individuals. They have to spend money to cope, both men and women. So it's perfect,
Perfect
perfect
consumer.
model. This is what's happening. It's woke capitalism, and the same
Well,
thing happened
Ok,
in
t'es
Japan.
où là?
As
Lunaris
far
Temple
as
1.
Lunaris
Sandman said,
Temple.
where is it going to go?
Ok, nice.
The first thing that popped
Là.
into my mind was it's going to go back to
J'aille-
club head.
Yeah, no one. No, I don't suggest that, but
But again, if you can't get her to love you or pretend to love you, well, what's the point, right?
that's how a lot of men.
But what? Okay, so a lot of MGTOWs have this. You know, we
Trebon,
know
man.
that women can't
Tre-
love us
Trebon.
the way that we love that. So
Check
when an
ça,
incel says,
évidemment,
"I want a
je
woman to
fais
love
gaffe,
me,"
je
well,
vais
how can she love? That's a paradox. That's the cognitive dissonant moment. So how do you get over that moment? Like, what's the argument there?
Well, it's pseudo love. You still can get
T'as
that.
vu, je casse
You're
tout
not
mes
gonna
spells
get
en
the
même
complete
temps.
love, but there's
You can
there's
only
adoration.
get that when
Jusqu'à
you're
Swerve
very
of Conviction.
Yes,
c'est
up
ça,
to
ouais.
25,
very
yeah,
early
yeah.
on. That's why the
Yeah, c'est fou.
virginity was so important. You're like 17, 18, 19, when you don't really know what it is you want. You just love him or love her.
Attraction,
and,
yeah.
You know, the families would get together and work a deal out, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. All the things we're talking about right now, and based on what we're talking about now, anybody tell me, are there similar streams that are headed by women talking about the same thing?
There's some like Red Scare Pog. The woman kind of talk about the new sexual dynamics of the way. I mean, you gotta. I mean, the leftists are kind of celebrating this in a way because there's books like you know, sex under or how socialism, how women have better sex under socialism, and it brought up a good example of like Western Berliner men, when these top guys, they would go into Eastern Berlin and they notice like, hey, we can't pick up any of the women. It's like, I think a lot of women are celebrating the new ways of the sexual market. They are openly talking about this in some places, like you know, female dating strategy. They're celebrating the way the things are, but they know they still have to compete, but they don't want to go back to the position. They enjoy making their own money, and they would rather just spend their whole lives. They say this. I mean, a lot of say, oh, you're gonna be a cat lady. They said, I don't give a fuck if I'm a cat lady. I will spend my time chasing the high value men to my grave, and I have to be a cat lady. That's fine. I want nothing to do with the rest of the males. I mean, women are fine. It's the men that COVID has proven this. Who are the reaching out? Who's asking who out in the grocery stores? It's men. Women are reporting a lot on these subreddits that they're getting contacted by all their exes. There's a woman that said that she got contacted by a guy she went on a date just once 6 years ago, and he's contacting her. All the women right now are getting flooded. There's women that says,
responding? Are they?
yeah, they're surprised. There's a woman that says, you know, I've never been asked to a dog park, and I've been asked out twice back to back. I was wearing no makeup. There's an article. Single men are really going for it. When the lockdowns first happened, there's an article that came out, and it kind of shamed, but it kind of showed what strategy single men are doing. It's the single men that are really lonely. It's the single men who are truly the ones chasing relationships right now. The whole mantra was that
Je marchais, puis il y avait des mobs qui avaient start leur auto-attaque, fait que j'ai marché un corridor de la mort, puis je suis dead.
We have a situation now where we can study this.
I think it has to do with duration. So, for example, with women, they get emotionally needy faster than men. But COVID has now extended the period of time that people have been in isolation, so it's now revealed men's weakness after, say, 2, 3, 4 months, right? Whereas women, it would have been right away. So
I non-essential. I bring up the term non-essential. Well, it's a laborer. It's a guy working with the books, right?
Non merci, pour l'instant, je suis pas tant intéressé par du item, je veux surtout par autre chose.
Well, here's another distortion. Now that all the women are kind of skittish, they don't want to go risk meeting a random guy off the internet. So they're fine with having video chats. They're high because why are women on online dating? You know, they did a study on this. They
Ouais, je rentre pas par là.
Number one reason women are online dating is not to find a guy. It's to get validation. It's to get reassurance. Maybe that chat injecting them. Yeah, it's attention. So in the COVID scenario, they still get what they want, but the men get nothing. They get no physicality because men want to go on dates. They want to see the woman. They want to potential for sex. They want the interaction. Women are fine. That's why they say, "Oh, I'm trying to get all these video dates, but the guys keep dropping out. What's going on? I don't want to go out and get infected." You know, and the men are freaking out on these things. I'm seeing these blue-pilled men getting rage. They're like, "Oh, look, bitch, you're gonna choose one. You're either gonna stay inside or you're gonna date. There's no other way." And you know, they try to ban these type of guys, but now it's just so much that I don't think they can ban every man on these dating threads. But a lot of men are getting pissed off at the way they're finally discovering what it's like, and COVID-19 really blew the lid off.
So those men are not getting their sex, they're not getting attention, they're not even meeting up in real life. So what they're doing is they're pretty much just starting to drop off, and that means the attention's going to drop off for the women eventually. No? Or
no, because men just just sit all day. I mean, this is the problem, is that there's such a low buy-in into, like, before social media online dating, as a man you gotta go to a pro. You gotta do it, which is also natural and really fucking weird.
J'ai pris un autre tournant, puis j'ai aucune idée de je suis.
But now with online dating, you don't have to worry about embarrassing yourself. You just download TikTok, whatever app, and just start hitting up every woman. A lot of guys do this. They shotgun approach. It's a shotgun approach.
Well, hey, first the article you sent me, you sent in the Skype there.
Yeah.
Single guys are really going for it now. It says on a recent episode of Man Up. What the fuck is that?
Dude, one of you asked. It's like, are women talking about it? Yes, they are. They are talking about this shit. So they have their own podcast. They're talking about it. They're lamenting the fact, and they're just co-opting strategies. They're like, this is what happens in every dating discussion. It's a lot of men complaining about getting nothing, and a lot of women complaining about getting a lot, but not what they want. And that's where the complaints are. And the men are like, look, you're getting something, I'm getting nothing. And the woman's like, well, I'm not getting what I want. So
the popular podcast that they watch is called Call Her Daddy.
Yeah. That's actually one of the fastest growing, one of the trending. I mean, again, female empowerment. I mean, females are
Well,
becoming
do you want
gods.
me? Do you want me? Let me read a little bit of this article here. Uh, I feel like there was something in the air because it was early days of quarantine.
Ah, on a oublié de faire notre
Also, a
trial
very
aussi.
nice day outside. I'm not sure if everyone had the spring has sprung mentality.
Tu vas-tu
But a
vouloir
lot
le
of
faire
factors
bientôt?
were in the air.
Yeah, on
The
finit
first
saison 9, on va
encounter
le
I
faire.
had was at the pharmacy. I go pick up my prescription. It's not ready yet, so I'm standing at the counter area and I see a guy sort of looking over toward me, and I'm not even kidding. With no sort of
Daniel
introduction, he was like, "Do you come here a lot? Do you want to go out sometime?" And I was just honestly burst out laughing. And then my name is called, so I'm like, I gotta go pick up my prescription and sort of dodge that one pretty quickly.
Rejected.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
That's what men are doing. Men are they're going online for the first. Some of them are first, or they haven't been online. They've been discouraged in the past. They're like, oh, it's COVID. I bet all these babes are online, and they go online. They get discouraged, and they're like, oh my gosh, there is no options. You know, COVID shut everything down. What do? They go to grocery stores. They go to, and what is this doing? This is the oversaturation we're talking about. What is the woman's reaction? She wants to get away from that scenario. Women do not want to be approached. This is another black thing is that we have this whole notion that the man approaches. This is such a false. I mean, how it's supposed to work, how it works with the boomers is that's why we have the bullshit boomer is because women put themselves into the orbit of men they want.
Yep.
And back during the boomer era, when they needed to do this to get into the middle class, they orbited the average guy because hey, I'm gonna get a factory job. I'm just gonna put myself in this orbit. He's gonna ask me out. They make it dead obvious. Now what's going on at the internet is women, they DM the guys they want. And we've done an episode on this. We've shown the proof. We've shown the screen caps from a guy called Jay. Women, they DM the guys they want on social media. They reach out. They don't say, hey, let's smash. They do it covertly. Men are overt. Women are covert. But they reach out. They reach out to the guys they want. They have a pool they want. As a man, the whole approach thing is PUA delusions. The cold approach thing is the most mentally ill thing. You know, guys feel
This one
weird
I'm
about
gonna
approach, right? They get that thing in their stomach. They
Okay.
feel weird about it.
Okay. So, like for me, I've always found that the best way to get women is to basically build yourself up, and then they'll just orbit you, and then they make it obvious, and then you just go out with them. And that's pretty much been my experience for most of my life. Now, the thing is, but now, if the dating market is getting more and more difficult, then that strategy will not work, right? Because you're looking at they're only looking at the top 2%, 1%. So you
Exactly.
so
They make it obvious when they want you.
Yes, it's very
especially-
obvious.
but they
especially in
also
North America.
but they also don't know. Okay, so they'll contact a guy, and that guy's girlfriend won't know that another woman is contacting him.
Exactly.
Right,
exactly.
So there's
Un
So-
masque qui donne plus 1 à
So
5
women don't they're not used to being
Mais
picked
il y a
up
juste
in
un
real
link.
life anymore.
Il y a juste un socket.
no. Well, the documentary.
De
it
toute
says
façon,
that
je suis
one
juste
third
des
of all
summons en
relationships
attendant.
now start online, right? And
Unfortunately,
so it's going to get
was
worse.
simply
We all know it's going to get worse, especially now with COVID and all this stuff. So if your social connections are even more restricted, by the end of this year, it'll probably be 50-60% if they start at all, right? So
yeah, I don't think that's the thing. They're not starting at all. It's
Yeah.
a bunch of men swiping, getting discouraged, leaving, and a bunch of. That's why for the first time in America, 51% of adults are not in a steady relationship, and that's mostly men. That's driven by men, of course.
Well,
But that's the
trial.
thing. More
Yeah.
Americans are not in a relationship, not in a steady relationship than not. 51%. This is a
I'd
recent
say
study
it's-
from
and
2019.
I've always said that 51% of that 51%, 61% is men, and then 41% is probably women. If that,
Yeah,
maybe.
And I think if you look at the young, if you look at the Zoomers, it's probably 90% men and 10% women. Because,
Exactly.
every woman's
Switch
taken.
that.
Well, because she
every
can get
woman that's-
older, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Every woman is always taken. That's why online dating is such a wrench out of it, because it's like, what woman needs to use this to find a man?
Only the
Like,
worst
there-
of the worst.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's what you're gonna expose.
suis
yourself
rendu
as
dans
a
le
man. That's why,
labyrinthe, je
I
t'attends.
say that online dating is really not an option. How most men got.
Ah, je vais me
laid
prendre de
social
l'eau pendant que je
circle, now
t'attends.
that's dying off. So.
Non, j'ai
I'm
une
just
bière
glad
juste
I'm
à
not
côté de
your
moi,
age,
je l'ai jamais
man.
bu.
Yeah.
J'ai pas entendu quoi?
J'avais une bière juste à côté de moi puis je la buvais même pas.
Je reviens.
J'arrive lentement, monsieur.
Alright, on va commencer le lab en attendant que t'arrives.
Yeah,
Je suis là, je suis là.
I
T'es rendu au Scepter of God?
Non, le lab. Tu veux qu'on fasse le trial?
BlackRock too. Yeah, yeah.
BlackRock.
BlackRock's gonna be renting it out at
Moi,
like
j'ai
3,
le.
4, 5 grand a
Path of
month,
Exile.
and if you can't pay, they'll just lock it up and won't rent it to anyone, right?
Too much clutter.
And they'll be like, well, guess what? Our other houses, our other 90% of houses that are rented are getting 6,000 a month. So we're just gonna limit the supply, and then the cost will keep going up. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not just like, you know, if you're taking a red pill or a black pill when it
Je sais pas
comes
si on peut
to
être dans le
women.
même.
Take the one when
Fuck,
it
on est
comes
pas
to
dans le même
your own
instance.
financial servitude and slavery, because this
Non,
is
c'est
just
chill.
getting out of control.
Ouais,
At least in
whatever,
the
on va le
States,
faire
like,
chacun notre bord.
America-
Non, je vais quitter le lab et on
it's
le fait
hilarious
ensemble, c'est
because,
tout.
you know, you can still buy an affordable house for like 200-300 grand in a second or third tier
Je peux
city.
pas retourner
In
au
Canada, it's
campement?
like, you can't eat, like, people are moving out to New Brunswick. People were telling me, hey, Sandman, move to New Brunswick. I'm like, and what, pay $500,000 for a house near the coast where there's nothing? I'm not, that's like living in Maine, like Portland, Maine. I'm like, I might as well just immigrate to upstate New York and pay like $150,000 for a
Yeah,
house.
just like a
Move
wife.
move
and
to
a gr-
Brooks, Alberta.
Yeah, just like a wife and a girlfriend's out of reach, a housing, even basic housing, even a room's gonna be out of reach. That's what's going on. Is that your hierarchy of needs, or your massive hierarchy of needs, is depleting. It's going down the chain.
Yeah.
Like soon, men
Moi,
will
je
have
suis
to
dans
worry
la
about
place qui nous
just
mène au
finding
lab.
shelter and food. I mean, that's what happens. That's why we don't see
Yes, on
such
va
an
être
instant crisis in the third world
Ouais.
mentally wise in the psychologies, because a
Active-le.
lot of men are just worried. When you're worried about starving
Yeah.
and finding a job,
Yeah.
that's how you. That's how I guess you lose that ability to even want a relationship, is because you're looking
on
for
peut-
fucking food. You're
Moi, je
looking
passerais juste
for
à travers, genre, le
for
Survival.
oh,
Yeah.
shelter,
Yeah.
survival, and a woman can never go homeless. There's so many.
Yeah.
Look at apartment listings. If you look at apartment listings, so black though, because there's so many guys that are like,
Women
oh,
only.
I'm a 50-year-old like single guy. I can give you this apartment for $500. Females only. Females only.
Yeah.
Females only. Females. As a straight.
serious?
As a
Yeah,
straight white.
yeah,
oh
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
what it is here. As a straight white guy, there's like barely any
I
freaking
thought
Where,
options.
where are you living?
Ça vaut quand même la
I'm
peine de
living in the
rechercher.
Bay Area.
Okay, so
C'est
whew, good luck. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a bad.
San
example.
Francisco houses, $2 million. Okay, Toronto
I'm
houses.
not in San Francisco, but I'm in the Bay Area, and
Okay.
it's like this.
Okay.
It's like this everywhere.
I'm talking Toronto suburbs, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 million. This is insanity. This is totally.
You know what?
insane. And I told my friends, I'm like, look, I have a couple of friends who are Greek, and I'm like, look, why don't you find a remote job and just, you know, do what I'm doing, and then go live in Greece for half the year. Like you want.
Yes.
Like, look, they're trying. They're like, well, I can't do it. I want the ideal life here in this country. And I'm like,
Premier trial.
look, you're not gonna get the ideal. Fuck it. Like, you know, you're
Time
gonna.
to emigrate.
It's time to abandon ship, right?
Yes.
And the thing is, everyone told me, they're like, oh, you come to Belgrade, the women are gonna be after you. I go, let them. I'm immune to their desire. Like, they come here. I've known women who've come from over there. They were trying to hit me up, and they're like trying to meet me, and they're rubbing their tits all over me. And I'm like, you're 39 years old. You're used goods. I ain't touching that. Sorry. Like, and
No, you're absolutely right, Sandman. Absolutely.
look, it's a game we can't win. Just like, regardless, like the dating game, you can't win, then don't play it, right? If you can't win the real estate game, if you can't win the, you know, live in Canada the way you want to, then change the rules. You know, like I looked at it like, okay, the trailer park with the fifth wheel, that's what the boomers are doing. You know, that's what they're retiring to those places. The government, even during the COVID crisis, they only allow people to live in those places for 6 months a year. During the COVID crisis, they changed the rules just for the boomers, right? So, like, they're like, oh no, you can come home early. That's okay. It's well, we know it opens in April, but it's February, March. You can come home now. It's okay. We're accommodating you. We know this is a issue. Meanwhile, people here, they're going to be doing what do you call it, evictions, and you know, the government says, no, sorry, those are the rules. It's like, well, this is a two-tiered system. The boomers get all these advantages, and everybody else gets screwed over. Like, fuck you. I'm gonna move in.
Property.
they don't
that-
want you owning property, and you have to circumnavigate them somehow on that level, and that's exactly what
Well,
Sandman's
why do you think
talking
there's so
about.
much of this like van life stuff going on, with
Ça, c'est quoi que
couples
tu vas
moving
prendre,
into
comme
vans, or
Mercedes?
guys?
Glamping.
There's a guy living up in what do you call it, the Yukon, driving around in his van, and I'm following. I'm like, this is people are like.
J'ai
so
pas
fed up.
entendu qu'est-ce que tu
They're
dis.
tired of this shit.
Tu
They
vas
want
prendre
their
quoi
own
comme
house.
Mercedes?
Can we get Facial Mess?
Elemental, of course.
You guys know about Facial Mess, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
He just wants to, because he wants a chance to talk to you guys, and I think he can really expand. You guys, he's the original OG
Yeah,
Don of the
yeah.
Black Bull Sphere. So he just want to join the conversation.
Sure.
Because, he's really intrigued.
Prochain.
I think this will be because
Non, ok.
Sandman, you're
c'est
the
pas
top of the MGTOW, and then he's the top of the
C'est à
Black.
gauche, à
This
gauche.
will be
It'll be
titans,
interesting.
the two titans. Yeah, I think. But yeah, I think you know, real estate also necessitates
pas
that
bon,
you have
Alex.
to be in a couple, because as a single male,
Celle-là?
you're a single, even if you're a higher, basically it's a bachelor's pass. The current real estate market is.
Oh
a
my
bachelor's pass.
god,
You
I'm so
can't-
bad.
Maybe before as a single male, you could say,
Fucking
screw this.
traps,
I don't
man.
want to be a renter. I can go buy my own house. But not even that's out of reach. You know, everything's becoming out of reach.
Look,
Oh,
the only
reset.
reason
Fuck
I
off,
can
moi,
even
faut
do
que
what I'm trying to do is because I have dual citizenship, which is what something most people don't have.
Tu veux recommencer
Number
ou
number
tu veux
two, I
finir
have a
tout seul?
paid off place my parents have. in
Je
the country
vais
that
essayer de voir ce que je peux me rendre.
It's empty most of the year, so it's like
Ok,
it
moi, j'ai
sits
décidé de partir
empty.
là-bas.
And then I'm like, wait a minute. If I do the thing half the year in Canada, then I can take advantage of the boomer benefit that gets passed around. But they go south. They go to the States in the winter, and then they come back in the summer to Canada. So they're the snowbirds.
Moi,
and
le
they
boss
get
va être
that
plus facile
advantage.
là-dessus.
So I'm just like they gotta fucking work every angle because there's no way to win this game.
Yeah, you gotta leverage your situation. You have to have a unique kind of like when
And,
you have the Belgrade.
And then on top of that, I work online for the most part, and that's why I thought about this during the COVID crisis, because 90% of my video clients have just evaporated because no one's doing anything. So I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, this would be the perfect time to do this. So again, I gotta
think that's a really good you gotta think out of the box now. That's what it is.
But it's not even out of the box. You have to have like cards that most
Yeah,
people
you
don't
gotta
have.
have hard
You gotta be
Je-
lucky
j'arrive
to
au
be
premier
dealt.
boss.
Yeah, you gotta, because the system is trying to anticipate every type of hack, right? And they're,
Exactly. It's what Steve Hoka talks about. You can't beat the meme. Of every little meme, like, oh, dating a woman in a wheelchair, or dating a fat woman, that's all being like co-opted by millions of other guys. So you can't
Exactly.
compete in the alternatives. The alternative market's getting flooded too. So
unless you do
That's
something
why-
wacky that nobody can even like, they're like, damn, I can't pull that off. And I'm looking at guys
Yeah.
who are like, they're like, one guy from Boston, another guy from Toronto. They moved to Belgrade, and they're like, come on guys, come on in. And then the people in Belgrade have no idea. They're like, why do you people want to move here? Like,
yeah.
and I'm like,
They don't
do you
just
understand?
focus on
Like,
this.
you have
Just
and they still have
exactly.
functioning dating and relationship markets for some reason. It's a social kind of country where people
Yeah,
meet
they're
up.
more they're not westernized. I mean,
Exactly.
the biggest it's like just
When
like
I'm
the
ready,
Hispanic population
I'm
in
not for-
California. It's you see that's the real thing here is especially in California. What you see is that you have this white population, these white men failing to get stable relationships, stable like employment, stable families. You know, they can't climb that ladder. But Hispanic men at 18, they're married off because they have these strong social connections, these old world social bonds where your abuelita, your grandma, talks to another grandma, and like they pair up. Oh, my sister, she has a friend, because they have these huge family like you know what do
Yep.
white people do? The white
Hey,
people.
buddy, is he in the call? He's saying he can't.
Nobody can hear him, like he says.
Yeah.
I
don't
see
know
him.
why.
See him in the call. He's probably, his mic settings are probably.
Aha, enfin j'ai
He'll-
trouvé la
he'll work
sortie.
on it probably.
Yeah, because he's fine. On this
OBS is kind of funny with the settings and stuff. It's annoying with the settings.
Je suis rendu au deuxième boss que je vais probablement pas avoir.
Yeah, I'm here, sorry.
Oh,
No, no, we're
Moi,
talking
j'ai quand même
about
battu facilement tout seul
Face
la première version.
and DLMS. He said he can't be heard. Can't hear him.
Yeah.
okay.
can't.
But anyway,
We'll definitely have him on.
J'ai rendu au deuxième.
Well, he's trying to get it. He's
Yeah,
in here
yeah.
right now. I don't know why he.
it's probably the
He's not,
settings.
he's not muted. He's
No,
not-
it's the
yeah.
setting. It's got to be the settings
Ça
in
va de
OBS
quoi?
because the first
Pas
few
trop tough?
times I tried it,
Je m'en prends quand même plein la mouille, mais
we can
ça
hear
pourrait
you.
être pire.
Okay, alright. Hey, I made it. Yeah, hey, everybody, Sandman here.
Oh, I caught your stream the other day. Was it yesterday? Go ahead.
No, but I'm glad to speak to you, man. It's an honor.
Well, I like your stuff too. I remember the first time I watched your videos, and I'm just like, this guy talking about shin implants and you know, making your brows thicker, and I'm like, wait a minute. I started looking at
Non.
the mirror, and I'm like, what
Je fais pas beaucoup de dommages, fait qu'il faut vraiment. Je veux dire, j'ai pas beaucoup de tankiness, fait qu'il faut jamais que je me fasse toucher.
It's the celebrity Hollywood thing, but it's for everybody, right? Now it's more affordable than ever.
T'as-tu deux potions?
Oh oui. Je peux juste jamais être sur place, puis j'ai un channeling. Fait que j'ai comme rien de pertinent là.
Essaye de prendre Crackling Spear. C'est un nouveau skill.
Oui, mais j'ai pris Ray Spectre à place pour avoir un deuxième summon.
Oh, I'm kidding.
Okay, from your perspective, like you grew up in a time way before, so
Je peux legit rien faire. C'est terriblement plate. Je summon 2 paires de squelettes, je bouge, je fais un petit peu de lightning, je bouge, je fais un petit peu de lightning. Je summon 2 squelettes.
Les channelings, j'aime pas ça.
Non mais c'est parce qu'une fois que t'as Arc Lightning en plus par-dessus, c'est quand même fou. Si t'as du choc aussi, c'est fou là, parce qu'après comme 14-15 ping, t'arrêtes une ligne complète d'ennemis.
Mais c'est pas un boss killer, I guess.
Pas en tout.
so that's like not only is that 5 years ago, but that's like that's probably like 20 years
Change
ago.
de la
in terms
résistance.
of culture.
100%. Juste marcher sur le plancher en
So
feu.
like masculine
Je suis comme,
figures still
ça fait mal,
probably
mais.
value somewhat like a man who can provide and is foreign, who is seen as high status. That is like value.
Bon, dans une
back
place.
then. So things have moved on.
Later. 5 years ago.
Just only 5 years. Encore de semaines, c'est long.
J'ai même pas fait la moitié de sa vie, mon cher. Tu vas finir ton lab avant que je me rende au. Que je finisse ce boss là.
J'ai dû le recommencer. Tu prendras au pire Spell Slinger, man. C'est fucking fort. Avec
Ça-
Crackling Lightning, puis genre d'autres plein de spells de Lightning. Parce que dans le fond, si tu prends Frenzy, tu le mets dans ta wand. Après, tu prends. Faut que tu aies au moins un 3 slots, même un 2 Link. Tu mets des spells avec Spell
Ok,
Slinger.
c'est inutile d'essayer de me l'expliquer en ce moment.
I don't get the. I
Correct.
don't have any animosity towards MGTOW. Like there are certain things I disagree with, but like when I'm going to bed, I will put on a MGTOW video. Like
Last
to
boss,
listen
bitch.
to the bed, or like I listen to MGTOW. I listen to Sandman when I'm getting ready for work. I listen to TFM when I'm going to bed. I listen to Paul Kane when I'm playing a video game. Like if there is any content that is as close to
Ça va te prendre 1 heure, c'est genre le boss après.
on my alley that I can get, it's gonna be if it's
Bon, je l'ai eu.
black
Tu l'as eu?
Ouais.
content.
C'est juste ultra long pis plate.
It's like there is the Venn
Mais je me fais
diagram,
pas toucher parce que je suis
it's like
rapide.
where there is such a big overlap. Like we both acknowledge
Évidemment.
hypergamy.
Évidemment.
Both acknowledge women's nature,
Start
which
over?
isn't favorable, but it's just what it is.
J'ai
We just
ça,
have to
faire ça,
accept
man.
it.
J'ai
So,
ça.
obviously, yeah, MGTOW will look at incels and say, "Oh, guys, you worship women too much." Incels will look at MGTOW and say, "Oh, you're coping. Maybe you can't get a girl. Maybe you're forced to go your own way." But like, by and large, like we do coincide with like the broad strokes. If that makes sense.
It's the same thing that happened with the MRA and MGTOW communities back probably about 8 or 9 years ago. Because
Yeah, we talked about that.
but the thing is, those two communities,
Bon,
it just
ça va peut-être le.
because of A Voice for Men,
Finalement, ça va
they,
peut-être le
just,
finir avant.
they went out of control, like the jealousy and the insanity from the MRA. And I don't think MGTOWs really care about that. I don't think they're really that obsessed. But in men's rights movement, it was just, they lost it when we showed up in some ways.
Yeah.
Calling
And
us pig cows. and-
that might be a generational thing too. Do you think?
Well, it's the MRAs were like the
J'ai été
masculine
trop cocky,
men,
hein.
and
Je me suis
they
dit,
thought
prendre ça.
this attitude
Non.
was not
C'est une des choses qui fait que je survis bien avec mon Lightning Mage, c'est que je sais que je vais mourir, fait que je fais attention.
Date and get experience in your teens and 20s because then you won't, number one, have any regrets when you get older, and number two, you'll have something to go your own way from. But now, like,
J'ai encore
like,
aucun défensif à part.
now we got another problem. So now you got to put yourself in that headspace.
Je sais pas
And
comment
then,
c'est censé.
are you angry? Are you
coûte
just
zéro en
accepting
soi.
of it? Like, what is the headspace of the typical incel, and then where does that go for society in general?
Well, I can.
Yeah, I was gonna ask her. Yes. What should I call you?
Face on that.
Me, face.
Yeah, face.
If
What I
face
call
first, right? There you go, face first.
So face, that face. If I can ask you, how old?
Oh, fuck.
Over 30. I don't wanna.
Ça sert à rien pour l'instant. Les enfants
You don't
Arcane
even have
Cloak
to answer
ils
at all.
spendent la moitié de la mana que t'as
market than me.
en ce moment. Puis ça donne un shield qui équivaut à la mana que t'as spend.
But yeah,
J'ai toute ma mana reserved à cause de Spell Slinger.
Because
Faudrait que je me prenne
obviously,
Steel Skin, quelque chose du genre.
I'm
pour
of
l'instant.
the opinion when it comes to the difference between, let's say, MRA, MGTOW, and Incel, there seems to be some kind of objective generational gap to a certain degree on the experience.
Yeah, definitely.
The
yeah,
MGTOW
Or
content producers are mostly over 40 now.
right?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Like older, like
40.
Hey, j'ai le voilà.
Yeah.
Oh, j'ai failli mourir.
TFM doesn't want to give away
Ça, ça
age,
serait
but
vraiment pénible que
he
tu meurs
basically
là.
said that he,
I'm not gonna tell you.
yeah, I don't want to see that guy give away his age either. But he said that he signed up for the war, like 9/11 happened, and he signed up for the war. So basically, he was at least 18, 19 around that time. So he's like
At least
older,
37, 38. At least 37,
Yeah,
38.
that-
At the minimum.
He's younger than me.
So he is not aware of how bad things, especially if he tapped out of the dating realm like about 10 years ago or whatever. So he's not aware of how bad things are. He thinks that the solution to every man's problem is to just get a sex doll. But a lot of men do want to. A lot of men actually want intimacy and a girlfriend, but the sex doll isn't cutting it for them.
No. Look. The doll. Considering I've received a couple of them and I've tested them out. Look, there are potentials to use it as a sexual tool, but you're never going to get the intimacy, right? You're not going to get that closeness. I mean, you might as well spend your money on like a cuddle cafe. You know, you know. Yeah, I
Bon,
don't.
ça va dernière pièce.
I don't know. I don't think the dolls would be a solution if you could do the whole thing I talked about where you actually project the person in, but even that's just a sexual gratification thing. It's not, it has nothing to do with actual intimacy. But some guys will see it as intimacy because they can connect to a real person through the doll.
Well, now,
Teddy
Faith,
bear.
you're
You're
talking
paying
to
for a
another
teddy
thing.
bear.
But imagine if a teddy bear had a face and it could talk and it
warrior led
could
upon
stimulate
Zaro's
the teddy bear.
stones and cursed Zaro's ilk.
It's just uncanny valley
upon
though
the
at that
walls
point.
No, but if you're
Yeah.
projecting a real person into it, it's a different story. If you project a fake 3D thing,
It's a teddy bear. That's a teddy bear, dude.
it beats the look. I looked at the dolls when I've tested the doll. Let's just say. If you take the doll and you do it donkey style from behind, okay, and you point the doll's face into a TV screen, and you've got a camera above the TV screen filming the face and then projecting a real woman's face over the doll, it can create the illusion that you're looking in a mirror and that there's a real woman there looking at you, and it works. It's just as good as having sex. That would be just as good.
Really? Well, I'll take the.
But it doesn't. You still don't get the emotional connections. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get the emotional.
I-
connection. I'm talking about just sex. But for some guys, sex might be enough.
On the physical realm, on the physical, like basis, what's the feeling like? Because I guess that's an important part of it as well. What is the feeling like?
I would say it gets a
Connerie que j'haïs ça quand ça fait ça.
feels different, but it feels nice. But also, if you don't warm it up, it feels kind of cold, so it doesn't feel really. And then there's also the fact that the doll, the texture is good, but the skin color, it doesn't like if it looked more natural, that would be a definite benefit. Because the thing is, the dolls are meant to look perfect, and the problem.
Why don't you just use prostitution at this point? That's what Michael said. As a TJ, there's girls that are like 9 out of 10.
I've talked to guys about prostitution, and they called me and they said, let's do a chat or let's do a video because I just got out of John school, because they got caught, and more guys are getting caught for prostitution.
Well, I'm saying go illegal. That's where we're going. We're having our first Incel con there because it's $80 to have like a 9 out of 10 girl. So
Je suis rendu au final boss.
I mean, I know
what happened to all the intimacy talk? What's going on?
Well, I mean, it's just out of.
J'espère pas mourir encore
why
comme
we have a rise of
vodka.
OnlyFans
Fait que je reste
because men do
ici,
want
il y a pas de trap.
That's the number one
No, I
thing they
know.
want.
Je
And
pense que je
we're
suis
building
mort en
it. So because he's gonna be, it's just out of. That's the one thing we won't ever get. Incels can get sex, but because they can pay for it, or they can have a sex doll. But the intimacy part, what's your man?
You're paying for it. I bet you have to pay for it. Like all my girlfriends, I didn't have to fucking pay for it. No way.
Yeah, he did.
But you paid for it. But you still have. But you have.
There's always a pay.
But you have sex on a regular basis with the same woman. Nothing beats that. You guys, nothing beats that. So
You're all in agreement.
yeah. That's the pinnacle. But the problem is that's not maintainable, especially in this society. Even if maintainable in this society. So where do we go from here? Right. That's where we go. We gotta look at alternative
It's gonna
technology.
get segmented. So like, if you want like some kind of faux fake intimacy, you're gonna have to be a talking point. OnlyFans. The physical intimacy, you're gonna have to go prostitution. If you want to be smoked by a woman, you're gonna have to go to like supermarkets, cashier.
We're gonna have
Like,
the same Japan model.
Yeah. So like you're gonna have like 10 different outlets to meet to replace the one real thing you want, which is the girl.
You know, okay, let me tell you, let me pipe in as someone who was in a company very long relationship for 15 years. The thing is, when you're with the same person for a really long period, you start to form other friendships. Like, I had other female friends that I would get intellectual stimulation from. Well, the girlfriend that I was with was not very bright. So, you know, the sex was great, and the companionship was great, but I couldn't really have an equal mentally or so I had to look elsewhere, and I was okay with that, right? Like, I don't think, you know, people can call it like emotional cheating or whatever. I wasn't emotional with this person, it was just an intellectual thing, right?
Sandman, here's the thing: is that you're not gonna find a perfect partner.
No.
It's not to love. It's just to tolerate. That's how it worked in the past. People tolerated each other. That's how it worked. That's how marriage survived. It's not love lasts like 7 years, whatever, or even less. We don't know, but you're supposed to tolerate that other person and be able to accomplish goals like raising children. That's what we had in the past. People didn't have. They didn't say, "Oh, I can't stand this man anymore. Let me go hop on OkCupid or Tinder." We had to tolerate it, and that's how society was built. So now that there's people that have options to not tolerate a person, when you have, it's like why that's why the margin of error for a man is so low in dating. Like there's more margin of error you can have than blowing them up. Just
You say something wrong, you're done. That's it.
done
What
because there's 1,000 other guys. She wonders, hey, I have 1,000 other guys. Are they gonna say the same thing? Probably not. There's probably better guy out there. So exactly, you meant, you know, that's it's just that's.
Alright,
but
moi j'ai fini.
I understand your plight.
Pas moi, j'achève.
There's a lot of psychological damage when a person is ghost.
Yeah.
It's like your.
Faut que je meure là, ça serait trop con.
Had like 10 years running away, gone, no clothes yet. So it's like, what the hell did I say here? I don't understand what I
Salut.
done or said. And
First try.
the outcome because you don't see the person person in person. You don't see them.
But now,
Ouf.
with the incel community,
C'était
at least
la
you know
roughitude.
Là,
there's
bon,
not
est-ce que tu
anything
veux que je t'explique un peu
wrong,
comment,
because women have so many options that you're
comment
just ghosted
Spellstinger
because
ça marche, pour que tu te fasses comme
the
plein de
guy
spells en
is
même temps,
2
fucking
points
fort.
above you hit her up.
Non,
It's
je
not,
veux
you
cast
didn't say
while
anything wrong. That
channeling.
was something I struggled
Puis les spells
with
que j'ai
for a long
utilisé, c'est un
time.
channeling.
Was Blackfield. I thought, what did I say? What? My last text, did I say something wrong? Like, did I say the wrong joke? Did I do the wrong thing? Did I text back too early? No, it's just I wasn't good looking enough, and the guy behind me, the next guy in her DMs, was good looking. That's it. That's all she needs. Like,
It's a form of
why talk
depersonalization.
to your worst option?
And you'll never know.
That's a good
Yeah.
awakening, though. I think. Like,
Yeah.
who gives a shit about?
It gave me some peace knowing that I
Yeah.
didn't approach a girl from the wrong angle. I didn't say the wrong joke. I didn't say the wrong thing. It's just that you know, if you have like 500 options, you're not gonna pick your worst. So obviously,
And she keeps
it's
chasing.
over.
She keeps chasing and chasing and chasing, looking for that Disney, looking for, you know, Beauty and the Beast or some bullshit.
Comme shield, c'est qui est drôle. Bon, fait qu'on continue
Sandman,
les...
where do you stand
quest.
on
Moi, j'allais au dock, là,
getting
j'avais réussi,
old
j'ai trouvé
and
le shit and shit, là.
do you think like you
Oh,
will
mais,
want to
More ring,
settle down
gratos,
eventually,
maximum
or
mana.
are you happy with just being on your own and
De la dompe. De la
just
grosse
accepting
Omega dompe.
this
Je regarde
life
ce que j'ai.
as it
C'est
is
meilleur.
MGTOW?
Well, it's complicated because, number one, my brain turns to mush when I'm in a relationship. Like it just.
Oh, yeah, I've
it
heard you say that. Yeah.
Like my IQ will drop. I don't know how many points, but I can't think sharply. I can't.
That's scientific fact. Yeah. Men drop their IQ during sex by like standard deviation.
But what is what is the standard deviation?
A standard deviation of your IQ. So I mean, men have to. You basically have to drop your IQ to have sex because you have to. That's why a lot of men they get in trouble with that stuff because they can't think in the moment.
But it affects every other aspect of my life. When I went my own way, when I finally broke free of relationships, it took me about 3-4 months to kind of clear my mind completely. But after that, I was like, oh my god, like I'm a completely different person. I can't go back to that relationship me. It's just I can't do it because if I do it, I'm gonna lose respect for myself because I can't think. I can't do any of the things I want to accomplish in life, and I may go and have like
Ooh, 6
find somebody
viewers.
that I can just get
Great.
have conversations with and get. But I already have that now with like 2-3 different women that I talk to.
Yep.
So if I
Allons
need
tuer
female
Dieu.
validation, I'll call one of them up. One of them might be my client. One of them might be my cousin. So I've got relationships.
Ah, j'avais même pas Herald of Thunder quand j'ai fait mon boss. Je pouvais bien avoir de la misère à faire mon labyrinthe, esti.
I don't need that very often. So, like the best worst case scenario would be have a girlfriend but not really be.
J'ai même
intimate
pas
with her,
Rat.
just kind of be
J'aimerais ça
upfront
l'avoir.
with her and live
Ça
apart.
fait du added like
Live with
damage.
it.
Mais
I've already
c'est...
done it twice. And
Pour
I'm
mon
really
Spark,
like, I have
Lightning
to go to
Tendril
the
serait
friggin'
parfait.
hospital to get pills to calm me down the one time. So it's like I can't do it. I'm an overly analytical person. I think too much about the relationship. I think too much about the partnership, and it overwhelms
Si
me.
mon,
So
si mon
living
quatrième
apart,
socket, ça serait
friends,
genre... Mon quatrième socket serait un
no
verre, c'est
intimacy
parfait, puis je
because
peux
that
mettre
will mess
là-dessus
up my brain.
multiple
So that's probably the
projectiles.
best I can hope for.
Ball lightning.
Do you think that might have affected your health?
Absolutely, because
Bon, on
the
arrive à la
more
fin.
the more I turn my brain on and the more I become analytical and anxious and pump the adrenaline through my body,
T'as une
the more
chainmail
my body
ici,
breaks
4
down.
lignes, 3
Relationships actually help my body because they shut my brain down to a certain extent.
Ah,
Help me not
j'ai plus
to
de place
roll.
dans mon
Help me.
inventaire.
I
Bon,
wouldn't- I
allons
wouldn't
tuer le
be here
boss.
if I didn't get into my last relationship that carried me through college. I probably would have
C'est
shot
free,
myself.
c'est
So,
fucking
Non, j'ai
wow.
pas de place dans mon inventaire, je viens de te
You
dire.
know, there's but there's
Je m'en connais ici, je vais juste faire des quests, on va arriver à la prochaine zone, je vais avoir une item 3 fois meilleure. Si j'ai pu passer le lab solo, je suis correct pour finir l'acte 3.
I mean, some people
Le
know
lab
my
solo,
personal
c'est quasiment
story. A part of it is
facile
the first
que
documentary we
à
did,
deux,
and
man. Il y avait
you can get
tellement...
ruined by a woman like permanently. You know, once you.
Well,
T'as vu comment la première
Especially
partie
if
c'était
you're
fucking worse?
No, it's just emotional wreck.
They can fuck you up really,
Ouais,
really
ouais,
Yeah,
moi qui fais quand même.
yeah, exactly, and that's what happened to me, and that's why I'm racing against time to search for a new relationship to get that aftertaste out of my mouth, but I can't find one, so I'm stuck with that aftertaste. And it's basically I've disappeared for the community for a while because I was thinking of committing suicide. That's why I disappeared. That's why I was gone.
I've had that aftertaste for 5 years now.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's driving me. It's insane. It's I
fou de
just
penser qu'il y a déjà du
my
monde qui sont
situation
rendus au
was
map,
it's
man.
just the people who know it. They all tell me this is the worst thing I've ever
On
heard
a
of
les
happen.
deux commencé à 4 heures. Quand même plus une heure de pause.
This is the worst backstab, the worst betrayal that's ever happened.
Plus
I
qu'une heure de
hate
pause,
it.
j'étais
I
attendu
hate it
pendant
so
fucking
much.
longtemps,
I thought I
souvent.
couldn't
Là.
any
Je pense que
lower.
bout à bout,
I
j'ai dû
thought,
passer une demi-heure à
you know,
t'attendre.
I made so many compromises, and even after that, you
Ouais,
get
mais
destroyed.
je
So
comprenais pas
sometimes
comment
I
mes
wish I
skills
would've been-
marchaient,
I kind
man.
of wish I would have been incel during that.
Yes, c'est
but
pour ça
then
que je
again,
prends un
that-
petit skill
the only
facile,
reason I'm here
que je
is
sais que je
because
peux
I have
rider
to.
jusqu'à la fin, puis je me passe quand c'est pas le basic.
Based on what I talked about, there is no goal at the end of the rainbow.
T'as-tu
Even
vu la
if you
différence de
do-
dégâts qu'on fait
That's
aussi?
the thing. These guys who think
Eh.
they can get their surgery, it's like in a relationship. If you fall in
T'as-tu
love,
vu
you fuck-
fucking où je serais plus loin, je n'avais pas eu à t'attendre une demi-heure puis à revenir faire toutes les quests pour toi?
You're completely right about that, Sandman.
But
It's your damage.
most MGTOWs will not acknowledge this break.
Mon dieu, j'ai bien de la vie.
I don't understand. You guys are the only ones that have admitted it.
Non,
Yeah,
encore!
I said
un-
most MGTOWs, I didn't say all, but
Je suis
I'm saying the majority of them, they're just kind of like,
Encore
she's out
un
there,
force socket, mais. Ah,
corn,
attends.
and I'm like,
Ah, le jeu commence. Bon. Ok, j'ai perdu le socket. Oh my god.
It's MRA. MRA says that
Damn.
shit. I mean,
There's no unicorn on
Oh,
the
fait
horizon.
chier.
Yeah, look,
C'était un
um,
helm en plus
guys,
qui avait 4
we're
sockets.
gonna have to shut this down.
Chance qu'on vient de prendre un waypoint.
Okay.
Yeah, we've gone.
Ah, ils
but,
ne l'auront
but
probablement pas laissé.
let me tell you,
Non, là.
this is one of the most
Là, ok, nice.
fascinating talks
Puis la map est encore là.
that I have ever had in my experience on this channel.
Bon,
It's incredible. And what I want to
c'est
say is
chiant,
that
mais
I
ils
hope
doivent avoir un
we get
overload de
any
serveurs
or
tellement
all
qu'il y a
of
de
you
monde.
back on again.
Imagine
at-
tu viens
at
de
some
tuer
point
genre
in
un
the
gros
future
boss
and
ou...
continue this
Ben là,
conversation.
j'allais dire
Because
Cyrus,
it
mais
is
Sure.
fascinating.
ça m'étonnerait bien gros que quelqu'un ait déjà
This
fini.
is history. We
Ah,
made
on n'est
this
plus
history.
ensemble,
We
c'est-
united the manosphere finally. The manosphere that's
No.
been at each
Exactly.
other's throat. The manosphere that's been a civil war between the Black Pill and Red Pill. We finally had.
what civil war? I didn't even notice. I don't really.
There was a dividance. There was.
Who
a,
was
like
throwing
the,
the civil war? What was going on?
The Black Pillars never agreed with the Red Pillars of
vise
the
de Anarch.
MGTOWs. I mean, all the Black Pillars hated the MGTOWs, and MGTOW said, "Hey, we're not incel, we're this." There was a split, and for the first time, we're having face-on mess the top of the Black Pill
Yeah.
and Sandman top of the MGTOW. So this is a historic moment. This is like meeting
Nice.
the Soviets meeting the Americans at whatever
Well,
bridge
in
that
space,
was.
in space.
This is history. Yeah,
If I
this
wanna
is
be-
history.
I want to be honest. Throughout the conversation, I did feel a little bit outdated. Right? As far as my age, my generation, my
Okay.
experience.
But that
As
just
a
means that
Ah,
you
j'ai
need
trouvé la
to
sortie.
change your perspective and grow as a person. That's all it means.
No, obviously, but I'll tell you what's more important to me, what was always in the back of my mind, that obviously you might not understand, is that I have reproduced, that I do have a son who is now 13 years old. So when I listen to what you guys say,
Yeah.
every word you guys said
No
hung
bistrot,
in
shit.
my mind because I have a
Ah non,
son
c'est la première.
who is going to have to adapt to the
Exactly.
world.
Your son might be on this show from like.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So
In a way, you want. We
One
don't
shot.
know. We don't know. But that's if you were able to have a son, you won't even get a reply to our text. That's the problem. The difference between. It's just amazing to me that there's big cows out there. It's like, at least you guys had a kid. At least you guys had that. Now men can't.
T'as-tu pogné un X?
We're fighting on a different planet. We're
Un
fighting
curse de
on a different-
lightning, ouais.
exactly.
Ah, ok, c'est ça les grosses
Nah, I'm
explosions.
glad we were able to meet like this. This is
Two
this is
match
history for me.
plateau.
And that's why I
Love to
said
do it again.
yeah. And that's why I said it was kind of
Ah, moi, c'est ça, je peux l'apprendre en fait.
It's simply because I am older and I do understand and where he came from and all of that. But I
Le son,
that's
lag.
the decisions I made and I have to deal with that. And everything you guys have said has
When I'm ready
made
and
me
not
really
before.
think hard about
Yeah.
the future of men and their relationships.
Tu sais qu'il y a une
with women
recette pour faire des
and-
Chaos
and-
Orb pour,
and all of that
avec
going
des vendors.
forward. So I really
Ouais.
appreciate the conversation.
Toutes des corrupted
It's like all the
items set, je
demons
pense.
out there were like, they had a
Ah ouais, c'est cool.
They're not going to get any.
Ça, c'est corrupted. Je pense que c'est juste des unidentified, rare.
This
Yeah.
is,
Par un
I mean,
set
this is what
complet,
we
ça
talk about
donne
the
un
future.
kill sword.
It's the end of monogamy. It's the end
Tower
of a lot of
rooftop,
things.
t'es prêt à mourir?
Non,
It's
t'as
a
raison,
bottleneck
t'as
for the
raison,
population.
c'est
The bottleneck
Non,
is
je suis pas
getting
d'accord.
slimmer and slimmer, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that Brazil is below replacement level. A country like
Ah,
Brazil.
what the hell?
I mean, so this is hitting all
Ah,
over
mais
the
non, on va
globe.
le
And it's
quitter.
rapid. It doesn't happen steady. It happens in waves. It's going exponential, and this is where we're going. I'm glad we were able to meet and get on the same page.
Yeah.
Whatever
You gave me a lot of.
whatever you think of CFM's take women's rights,
Pas peut-être pas en fait. Oh my god, je me suis
you
téléporté.
have populations
C'est
that
porté à
are
l'extérieur.
above
Hey, toi,
replacement
c'était mort?
level,
Yep.
you have populations that
Alright.
are below it.
J'ai dit qu'on allait
The
mourir.
ones above it
Mais
are
non.
patriarchal, and
Well,
women have right. So, you know, I'm not saying it's a good solution. I'm not saying it's like fair and balanced and honest and great. I'm just saying there are two options you can pick. And if you know, if we want to pick the not noble, if we want to pick the one that feels good, which is women and equality, then we just have to deal with more incels and fewer birth rates, lower birth rates. And that's just, you know, we pick a choice and we just have to, you know, accept it. That's how things go. Like you may have a grandson, you won't have a great grandson. That's
Yeah.
just how it is. Yeah.
and
En fait,
I'd
toi,
like
tu
to say
utilises
that
connectivity, mais que ça
Yeah.
à thème, je l'ai. Tu le fais déjà l'effet.
That would be good.
100%.
Yep.
What-
And
Faudrait que je prenne.
Yeah.
that would be
Well,
Il y a un
just
autre
let's
curse qui
let,
fait
we have to
elemental
find a way
miss.
to monitor
Ouais.
it, because I know like
Je vais me
sometimes
prendre
when I go
dès qu'on
on
reprend
the
en fait. Après le boss. En fait,
No, he talked.
Oh yeah, yeah.
so
ok, je vais retourner tout
we
de
need
suite.
to kind of find a.
Je vais aller me l'acheter tout de suite.
I can moderate it if I have to.
We might have to put like a 2-minute timer, and you know people do their point. They're gonna go back and forth.
All right, guys. I do have to end
Next
it.
door. Shut up.
I do have to end it. So it's been 2.5 hours. I gotta go. Almost 3. So I appreciate it for your time. We'll do it again. Thank you.
Oh, ça fait tellement chier quand mon
History was made
bonhomme
today.
veut pas téléporter.
I believe it was.
As always on this channel.
Well, I wouldn't say as always, but
Ok, je m'en viens, j'ai elemental miss.
anyway, guys, take care. Everybody, see you later. Be safe, be wise, be big power or incel. And we'll see you again on this.
Donald Trump's approval rating from Rasmussen has
Les curses d'ailleurs sont
skyrocketed to
crissement
plus
plus forts.
7 with a
À
net
Manuel
approval
Cast,
of 53%
Parce qu'il y a le
to
concept de Doom
46%
maintenant qui fait que son
disapproval.
effet sain.
And these numbers have
increase
left many of
plus
the
il est longtemps
politicos
dessus,
and
plus il est
pundits
actif dessus.
flabbergasted.
Puis
How
quand c'est
could
Manuel Cast,
Rasmussen have Donald Trump up 7 points in his approval rating? That makes no sense because all the other polls are so deeply underwater. And I think it's important to point out, I mean, look, you got some polls saying in the past week or so Donald Trump was minus 22. For the most part,
Ah, mais il
I
faut
think
juste avoir
nobody
un
has
curse
any
à
idea
l'actif
what's
à la
really
fois.
going on. The polls are wild and insane, but
Je viens
you
de passer
cannot
ça.
discount two important things. First,
Collectivité, tu me diras c'est
Donald
quoi que ça
Trump has had
fait.
a series of
Plus de
major
lightning
wins,
damage, plus de
3
chances d'être
historic
choc.
peace agreements. He's
Ok,
now
c'est
being
juste
honored
meilleur
with
que
an
le
award.
Metal, ça veut
You
dire.
also have the fact the riots have
Ouais.
been crushed, and you have the, you know, the
Ouh, le
relativity
bleeding.
of the failures of the Democrats. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the Democrats, and they're so nuts. Trump looks better by comparison. The other issue to consider is that Rasmussen was the most accurate pollster on election night 2016. So it's maybe better to take Rasmussen at their word, but it is strange because they're the only ones that have Trump doing this well. Some have pointed out Rasmussen is showing right now Donald Trump's approval rating among black voters and Hispanic voters is ridiculously high, and no one believes it. But you know what? The latest poll shows 33% of black voters support, or I should say, approve of Donald Trump. These are likely voters. And that's been replicated by numerous pollsters. Perhaps what's really going on is just like in 2016, the polls were tracking incorrectly. They're unable to accurately track Donald Trump's real base. And I'll tell you this, I know it may be a bit anecdotal, but I recently had a conversation with some locals who told me, in my area,
Bon, on se rend jusqu'à la ville, puis je vais arrêter là pour asseoir.
Ouais?
Yeah,
Ben, sorry, je vais continuer.
tu continueras. Je continue en fin de semaine.
Ouais. Et tu vas clairement me rattraper.
Mais je vais probablement streamer d'autres choses aussi, puis pas juste streamer ça. Ah, il y a une Valeria, tu veux-tu la faire?
Ouais.
Loose, great.
Ah, c'est plus 30% de enemy lightning resistance.
J'ai pris plein de lightning penetration. Blam.
Oh, un Val Clarity, nice. C'est quoi que ça donne, Val Clarity?
Comme Clarity, mais avec aussi un activable effect.
Ouais, mais je me demandais c'est quoi l'activable effect. Puis c'est de la grosse merde pour moi en fait.
Yep. Oh. Extra dommage sur mon Discord. Pas Discord. Ouais, c'est ça, Discord Artisan. Mais en fait, c'est plus que je suis un extra bonus pour mon Lightning Herald. Pipi cacaproute. C'est incroyable le nombre de noms qui étaient déjà pris, hein.
Ben, il y a quand même 36 000 personnes. Voir que Pipi Cacaproute était pris par exemple.
Angel of Iron était pris, mon cher.
Sur les 35 000 personnes qui ont. Il y a 2 personnes qui ont pensé au même nom que nous.
Puis qu'ils ont eu avant nous en plus. Bon. Ça va être la fin du stream pour moi ce soir.
Alright, ben on catch up bientôt, Big.
On vient de streamer un bon 4 heures de Path of Exile. J'ai streamé un autre presque 4 heures de Stellaris. J'ai fait mon presque 8 heures de stream aujourd'hui.